Thank you for coming to the town section of this dual meeting. I'd like to call this special meeting to order at 2:04 on, what's the date? February 22nd. And we're going to start with, Nick wants to do a little bit about.
Is it okay? Could I make a couple of announcements?
Sure.
Have we been open?
Yeah, we haven't opened
You're
yet.
going to convene.
Okay, so may a good time to do it then?
Before you open?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, so they have to do mostly with logistics. So bathroom is go out the outdoor, over through that entryway there, across the little hallway, straight in the door that's in the main building, and just keep right on going down the hallway till you come to the bathroom down there, should you need that. And I wanted to also mention that the school board, we will be, if people are here for the school portion, we won't be starting the school board meeting until such time as the town is done. So that's the only two things I wanted to say.
Okay.
On technical issues, this is more for the people on Zoom. As you know, we have BCTV here doing the filming and the recording and the voices, so hopefully everything is good. If you have a question, best practice is write it in the chat and I will see it and convey it to the people. Or if you prefer to speak your question, please use the raise hand icon and not just hold your hand up, because we're probably going to have more people on the Zoom that can fit on one screen, and so if you're holding your hand up going like this, I won't see you. But if you use the raise hand icon, you get sent to the top of the screen, so I will see you, and then I will call on you. I'm done.
Okay, so one of the first things we do at the beginning of every meeting is we go over the guidelines for select board conduct, which I believe you have copies of on your chairs, and I will read it. As a member of the town of Marlboro, Vermont Select Board, I will strive to, 1, act fairly, objectively, and in the public interest in all matters that come before the board. 2, treat my fellow board members with kindness and dignity, even when we disagree. 3, manage my conflicts of interest so as to preserve public confidence in the board's decisions and actions. 4, remember that the authority of the select board is vested in the board and not in its individual members. Respect the independence of our other town officers and work cooperatively with them in the best interests of the town. Also encourage public participation and the transparency of our town government. Remember, my behavior as an individual impacts the reputation of the select board as well as the community we serve. And finally, uphold my oath to faithfully execute my office to the best of my judgment and abilities according to the law. Sign. Okay. And then I would like to request that Mr. Stephen John act as moderator at this meeting, which means that he will be reading the individual items of the town warning, and for each item, each article, we will invite debate. So are you willing to serve in that purpose?
Yes, it'd be my honor, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Glad to look for Stephen John. Pleasure to serve, continue to serve the town in these kind of debates. Despite the fact we don't have a town meeting, I hope we will enter vigorously into the question and answers that we require to cast our ballots, which will all be by paper. So I appreciate the opportunity to do this, continue to do this. We have the auditor's report. This is the first article. I'm going by the articles because you will have to vote on accepting the auditor's report. I think that's the first thing on the ballot. Correct me if I'm buried from the ballot. I don't have a ballot in front of me.
Would you like an official one? There's a mistake in that one, so.
I see. Okay, well then thank you for the official.
Stephen, we're not actually voting on anything.
No,
We're just
I know
voting.
that, yeah,
But
but
it's
there may
to-
be questions, this is the
Right,
time when the
right.
questions are coming.
Questions,
So
right.
what I'll do is, first of all, ask anyone here to raise their hand if they want to have a question. By the way, it'd be nice, good to know each other if you introduce your name and and tell us perhaps at least what part of the town you live in. And then, of course, I'll ask Nick for anybody online that has a question, right? Okay, so the first topic was the auditor's report. Any questions?
I have an issue.
Okay.
I was very upset when I looked over the town report to find that there is not a single mention of the 4 informational meetings and the minutes thereof in the town report. The select board is a volunteer position, and we put in an additional 20 to 30 hours on these meetings, which are designed so that people will have a sense of transparency in town government and come and ask the questions at a time before today where everything's already settled. So we've put in a lot of energy on that, and I was horrified and insulted that the auditors chose not to include any record of that important town work that we did during the fall. So that's my comment.
All right, I think that's a big push for making sure you show up at the meetings next year. Because I presume the board will, if they have interest, will continue to volunteer that extra time.
And just to finish, those meetings are designed to allow people to speak freely, because I've been approached by several people who said, I have something to say, but I'm afraid to say it in a public meeting, which makes me very unhappy. We work very hard to make it inclusive and welcome input. We welcome people writing articles and do small breakout groups, and we couldn't have done more to support open and fear-free communications. So I'm quite upset. Thank you. Quite upset.
I'll take, sir.
Stephen,
Yeah.
thank you very much. It's not a town meeting, but at town meeting, we did have
Speak up.
audio, and for those of us who are aging and hard of hearing, may I please ask the speakers
Speak up.
to speak up? The acoustics in here, for those of us who are
Right.
aging and going deaf, are a little rough.
Thank you very much. So for those of you in the audience remotely, we're trying to make sure we speak up enough. If you're not hearing something, please send a chat note to Nick to, get us fired up. Yes, Forrest, our clerk.
I have a prepared statement that I'd like to read. Anyone that wants a copy of this after the meeting is welcome to it. So as Molly was stating earlier, the ethics rules adopted by the select board that you all have, I think this is going to be an important moment that we use that as the way that we're going to have this discussion with one another, and some pretty potentially emotionally fractious things are about to be said. So the statewide Municipal Code of Ethics Act 171 became law June 10th, 2024, and drastically changes the ethical regulatory landscape for municipalities. And the Vermont State Ethics Commission has been created to help towns with these types of issues. On the 23rd of January 2025, the select board appointed me the ethics coordinator for Marlboro. So what that means is that I take a training course, which I've done already, and to help bring this to the fore in our town government, because I'm gonna wait for Jim to have a seat.
Yeah, some more chairs.
These rules of ethics are important when things get weird. And for those of you who remember 2016, the last time the current administration was in power, we had an issue in the center of Marlboro. Election law was broken about the candidates were coming to voters. They're obstructing the voters' ability to enter the polling place. So that happened. So, and what I learned as as your town clerk after that, is that trust is an extremely fragile thing. It's extremely fragile. So, my question for the Board of Auditors, and this feels terribly unfair because there's only one member present, why, as Molly asked, was the minutes of last year's meeting that we're in currently, why was this omitted? This record, as a permanent record of the town, so The town report, as you have in your hands, is a permanent record of the town. So it's archived forever. It's archived in the state records and at the library at the University of Vermont. So the omission of these minutes, to me as the town clerk, is disrespectful and completely erases my work creating these minutes so that the voters can either in the meeting or after the meeting can learn what the voters discussed. In addition, as Molly stated, I gotta go back to reading and not just working off the top of my head. But one thing I want to talk about, Nick, maybe you can share the screen on this, please?
For which?
The oath of office.
I did this. There it is. Nope, that's not it. Sorry.
It's okay. I mean, I will continue. I'm going to discuss, I'm going to put up the oath of office, which is, that any officer who's sworn in to do the work of the town needs to take. We're going to, I just want to run through that quickly. Again, the auditor's report doesn't include the minutes of the series of the 4 meetings held by the select board to have extremely transparent government and show exactly all the stages we go to build the ballot and the numbers and all of the things that we see there. So additionally, for the Board of Auditors, the question is, when we look at the election results of 2023 and 2024, regarding the methodology that the voters overwhelmingly chose to cast their vote, it is not voice vote, but Australian ballot, secret ballot. Nick, if you can also pull up the 2023 election results. 2024 election results are in the back of your town report. If anyone wants to look at those articles, I would urge you to. Additionally, oath of office. I'm just going to read this out loud. I give this oath to officers, the justices of the peace, school board members. The Evan Wise, who's the assistant town clerk, gives me the oath. So, oath of allegiance. I blank do solemnly swear or affirm that I will be true and faithful to the state of Vermont, and that I will not directly or indirectly do any act or thing injurious to the Constitution or government thereof. So help me God, / under pains and penalties of perjury. Okay? So that's saying to the state, I pledge my allegiance. Then there's the oath of an affirmation of office. So this is the town one. I blank do solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully execute the office of blank for the town of Marlboro, and will therein do equal right and justice to all, to the best of my judgment and ability, according to law. So help me God, under pains and penalties of perjury. I take this enormously serious. And it's the only way that there is any kind of ethical care for one another as townspeople. So the next thing I want to say is there's responsibility. Okay, the word responsibility, your goal as a town officer is to respond to the people who pay the bills. And that's when you're a town officer who's also lives here, you're one of those as well. So to follow the voters' wishes conducted during a fair election, and the courage to show the process with complete transparency. So lastly, transparency is the correct response in this moment of chaos at the federal government, at the state government, and right here. Thank you, that's my statement for the Board of Auditors.
Thank you.
This entire page will become a record of the meeting.
Send me the 2023 ballot.
I didn't?
No. What is?
I will now. Okay.
All right, returning to Article 1, or continue with Article 1. Anyone else have a comment or a question?
Can I speak for a moment?
Yes, you may.
I'm Andy Reitzman, I live on Cowpath 40, and I am one of the auditors. I will say that we had no idea of the strength of feeling that people had about the minutes for an informational meeting. And we debated and decided that for financial reasons, because the size of the report is contingent on how many pages and the cost. And we didn't see the need to put in those many extra pages to provide informational meeting notes. If we had known, I'm sure we would have included them, but we had no idea. We certainly didn't mean to offend anybody, and we sorry. Next year they'll be in. I can tell you that much for sure.
We put in a tremendous amount of energy towards transparency and inclusion. And the fact that the effort towards transparency and inclusion was not included feels, we had 4 of
And so
them.
you would want all 4 minutes put into the, okay.
I mean,
Okay, Forrest, yeah?
just lastly, like, I'm a taxpayer, and we're asking the taxpayers for $6 million, so another 20 pages of paper in the prints, the printed reports, kind of like, wow, okay.
All right. Anyone joining us remotely have a question or comment? I see none? Any others here?
Actually, I have one other thing, sorry, then I will promise I'll be quiet for a minute. Inside, last page, can you see it? So Linda Peters is retired. I spoke at the last town meeting. I tallied up the total number of years of all of the different hats that Linda wore is 109 years of service to the town. But this, 26 years, is wrong. So she served for 33 years. 26 years is just the number of years the town did not pay her retirement. And you will be seeing that on your tax bill this year.
33, you said?
Correct. So yes, please change your report to read 33 years. Thank you.
Wow.
All right, sure.
Gail in the
Auditors
back.
will accept that revision. Gail, and then,
Yeah, Gail was like another auditor, and I'm sorry, I apologize, I came in at the end of this discussion, but, Forrest, I just want to make clear that the informational meeting minutes that you want in there, those are
Okay.
from the previous year.
Yeah, so this is not what I want, but this is what the voters have asked for.
So they're not this year's informational meeting, they're the previous years, is what we had in there last year.
Could you say the number of the year?
So we left in the 2023 town report, the 2022 informational meeting minutes were included. So had we included them in the 2024 report, which is the one we have here, they were the minutes from the 2023 informational meeting.
Correct.
Meetings. And if that's what the voters
why would that
want,
be?
that's what we'll put in.
Well, because
They're
we
not
have
the
it
ones
this
we
one.
had this fall.
okay, I'd just like to clarify my understanding. I think that the difference here is that the select board would have liked in this report to see the minutes of the 4 preceding informational meetings that led to their formulation of this warning.
Yes.
So those meetings we had in December,
2024, the
September, and so forth, 2024.
Correct.
We had one in January, didn't we? or not? Yeah, we won in 2025 in January. Yeah. Okay,
Thanks.
clarifying this is what meeting face-to-face is about. Okay,
Clarence?
well, Clarence did speak already, so I'm
Okay.
gonna go to someone who hasn't spoken yet. Yeah.
Forrest, are you recommending that we reject the auditor's report until such time as it can be amended?
I have no power to do that. You have a ballot in your hand or at home,
Is that your
and
recommendation?
I would never make that recommendation.
Okay,
I am not the king of the world. We are all voters of this town.
yeah.
So your voice is your vote on that piece of paper. Great question.
Okay, you've spoken.
Well, I
yet,
was
sir?
just wanted to follow up on hers. Is it?
Say your
is
name
it-
and where
Yeah,
you
I'm
live.
sorry, my name is Rick Holmes, I'm on Moosewood Ridge. Is it too late to amend the report, at least for the record, not to print everything all over again, but is there a way that the auditors
Create a
can
supplement.
suggest
A supplement,
including
an
that?
addendum.
Yeah, excuse me, if we were in a town meeting, a vote would accomplish that. But the only option we have at this point is to vote on the ballot, paper ballots. You're not.
Bill McGregor, and we could have those informational meetings put on the town website so that anyone could.
They're already there.
Access them.
People don't always have access to that.
Clarence Fawcett, John Hill. First two first. I too take that oath seriously. I hope to take it to the 20th straight time, a minor office. But there is no such thing in a volunteer government in a town as a minor office. We all need to work together. And judging the economics, when we are looking at the scale of our budget, economics cannot be a rationale for not providing information to the people of the voters of our town. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are we ready to move on to another article? Anyone remotely?
Yes. We're fine remotely.
Great. All right, Article 2, to elect the all town officers required by law to be elected at the annual town meeting, which means by ballot in this case. Select Board, 1 3-year term, Lister, 1 3-year term, Auditor, 1 3-year term, Treasurer, 1 3-year term, Constable, 1 2-year term, Delinquent Tax Collector, 1 3-year term, Cemetery Commissioner, 1 1-year term, Cemetery Commissioner, 1 2-year term, and Cemetery Commissioner, 1 3-year term. I presume that's if article related to that issue is approved.
Number 3, the next one.
Yeah. Article 3 establishes the cemetery commission, so obviously if you want to establish one, you got to have someone to open the office, and that's the purpose of those positions being listed, added to the usual. Now, this is not town meeting, so I'm very familiar with the fact that town meeting, I couldn't ask anybody to get up and speak and all that sort of stuff on behalf of somebody or, campaign. Right. But this is an informational meeting, and we are well proceeding and well beyond the polling place, right? So we're safe to say something if we wanted to about a particular candidate or whatever, okay? Well, can't be slanderous, but, we're civil, we're good. Anybody like to speak on behalf of themselves, their intent as a candidate for any of these offices, or you want to speak in support of somebody for any of these offices? The audience has an opportunity. The audience is pretty quiet, but, here we have one.
I'm signing up for a second 3-year term, and I'd be honored to have your votes. And I would also like to recommend Rebecca, who's been appointed up till this point and would like to be elected so she can really settle into her new job.
That's for treasurer.
Treasurer.
Okay, Nick.
As someone who works intimately, shall I say, with the select board, I just want to urge everybody, Molly has put in over the last 3 years heroic amount of effort, and the fact that she wants to continue is a testament to not only her oomph as a human being, but also her belief in the town and the people in the town. So that just,
Thank you.
what I have to say.
Jeff?
I'd like to second that, also in support of Molly and also in support of Rebecca. Both of them have been key parts of the select board and running of the town office, and I think that they're both excellent candidates.
All right, thank you. Someone?
I do have Aaron. I have a,
Fine, Aaron?
Aaron, go ahead.
Muted.
Are you muted?
They're muted, Aaron.
Brian, is there something going on? Hold on, Aaron.
He needs to unmute, I can't. Is he muted?
No, his thing doesn't say he's muted. Can someone else on Zoom talk and see if it maybe is just Aaron and not?
Aaron's muted.
Speak up.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear them. Okay, Aaron, try again.
That's Paul Butler, right? Okay.
Yes.
There we go.
Nope.
Oh.
Now it says mute on his window. Yeah, he's muted.
he's muted on that, he's not muted on mine.
It's not me.
Can you can't unmute him?
No, he's in control of the meeting, I'm not.
You are muted, Aaron.
You should check the mute button on
You
his
you are muted,
computer.
you need to unmute.
Well, no, it's not showing as muted on
No,
this.
I'm not, I'm saying in the computer preferences, there's a place where the audio can be muted.
Can you type in the chat, perhaps?
Yeah, Aaron, type your question in the chat.
No, he's gonna type it.
If there's anyone else in the meantime, he's going to type for a minute.
Well, I'd like to know that, I'd like y'all to know that I volunteered for this, but I have a grandson waiting for me at home, and I'm not gonna spend, I'm not, I'm gonna be a little short, and it's fine if you find somebody else halfway through this meeting or whatever, but if we spend a half an hour on every article, well, anyway. I'll do my best.
You always do. In this moment where maybe Aaron's typing, I'm just gonna speak for a second about the three townspeople who stepped forward to start a cemetery commission. In the past, the town has had no cemetery commission, so each cemetery had its own little regulations and its own set of people who were doing the work. Part of work that I've been doing with a couple other volunteers to create the new King Cemetery space and the expansion there, the need for cemetery commissioners to run the office of all of the burials in this new space, as well as caring for the old cemeteries that the town owns that aren't being used anymore, will fall in their capable hands. So thank you to the three of them for stepping forward.
Marcia would like to speak.
Yes, Marcia Hamilton from West Marlboro. I'm running for cemetery commissioner for a 3-year term. And I wanted to do that because for many years I've been involved with the Clark Warren Cemetery, fixing the gravestones and keeping it in good order. And I thought this would be a good opportunity. I know a lot about the cemeteries in Marlboro, and I'm excited to get going. So I guess I'm asking for your vote. Thank you.
Hey, Marcia.
Yeah.
Did Aaron's question come through yet? Or comment?
No.
No?
Go ahead.
All right. Well, Article 3, I think we drifted into that anyway. Any other comments on Article 3? All right, moving along to Article 4, to see if the town will vote to set Friday, October 10th, 2025 as the due date for property taxes, payable to the treasurer. Any discussion? Yeah.
Carol Ann
Take Carol first, then take you.
Carol Ann Johnson, South Road. Wasn't there some discussion at the last meeting in January about dividing it into two?
That's the next
Right.
article.
That's the next article.
Oh, the next one, sorry.
It's a little interesting the way this is set up.
Because that's because the 2 installments wouldn't happen this year.
We wouldn't have right to
Okay.
It wouldn't happen until
Sorry,
26, so we're
26,
setting the
okay.
date for
Sorry, my
25
bad.
and then,
No,
That's why I should.
that's why we come here, no, hey, please, don't say that. You want, it's clarifying for a lot of the rest of us too, what do you mean?
That's stupid.
Thank you.
Moving on.
Clarence?
The law is that we elect a moderator for town meeting. We elect that as first order of business. So let's try and get Stephen home to his
No, don't cut off this bait for me. Thank you, Clarence. We have Article 6, unless there's something more to say about Article 5 and Article 4 and 5. All right. Home front, remote people, Nick, you're going to speak.
I will speak up if someone has something to say.
Thank you very much. Article 6, to see if the town will vote to assess 1% sales tax, tax on sales, it says, all sales, meals, alcoholic beverages, and rooms in Marlboro pursuant to 24 VSA, I think what they did next, put a chapter, I think, that's chapter 138B, anyway, section 138B. Discussion?
I'm wondering what is rooms refer to? Like Airbnb or?
it's my understanding that it would include Airbnb short-term rentals and
The Whetstone
the
Inn.
Whetstone Inn,
The,
Colonial,
or
what's it called?
Colonel Williams.
Colonel Williams.
I've had a request from the Zoom is, even though we have this great speaker system, please speak up. If you don't feel like you want to project, come on up to the front.
Thank you. Yes.
Patty Webster,
Patty, yeah.
Butterfield Road. I'd like to know what Whetstone Inn feels about that. Just
About the 1%?
Jeannie?
It's a
She's
passing
talking.
along
She's
to
talking.
most of the people that come to stay at the Whetstone Inn are people that are not from town. And so I personally don't have an issue with it, but I'm asking Jean, because she is the owner, to see if she has comments.
Yes, we don't have any objection to it. The question is, what does that involve about sales of other businesses in town, the personal businesses? Now, you did say it includes the Airbnb, but what about any kind of sales? It says all sales, and
I believe that it does not include services. My farrier was asking if she would be having to institute a 1% tax on when she shoes my horses. And we believe that the material that she buys might be affected if she buys it in Marlboro.
Yeah.
But her services would not be taxed. So I believe, and what I'm hoping is that when you buy something on Amazon, you'll have to pay a tax, and that'll help pay for the roads, because the 75 million heavy trucks that rumble over our mud seasons roads should really be reduced. So that might be a good way to cut down some of the costs.
Nick.
I have two questions from the Zoom gallery. One is, what is the background on this article? And they're also asking what businesses think about it, and i.e. like maple syrup. And I can just kind of say, if you sell maple syrup in the town of Marlboro, you will be charging whoever's buying that syrup an additional 1% tax.
is it on food? I mean, I don't think it's on farm products, is it?
Okay, I stand corrected, I'm sorry.
All right, yeah. I think that's what the clarification was going to be.
Actually, I was going to say correct that too, but I had another question.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm Nancy Anderson from Route 9. I'd like to know whether, if this tax is enacted, whether there would be any obligation on the town to enforce the collection of that tax.
It's Forrest, there's an answer to that, perhaps?
Yes, so I did a bunch of research on this, and no, the town doesn't need to do anything. So the 1% fee for people who are vendors or who apply sales tax to their work or rooms, meals, whatever, you're already doing your reporting to the state of Vermont and sales tax, and it's literally, Evan and I actually looked it up on his business's website. It's basically just another line. Am I correct, Evan? Yeah. So it's just another line. So it means all you go. So the thing is that, as Molly said in one of the informational meetings that we held, this is a tax on consumption. Okay, so it's things that people are buying. It gets added, and it's 1%. So we're talking about $1 on $100 or $10 on $1,000. So it's a pretty nominal amount, and the amount that municipalities can gain, I don't know what that's going to be, but it's going to be in the thousands of dollars. That's just free money to us. And the state basically just does their thing, and they contact the business owners, they collect it, they administer it. All we do is get an ACH payment in quarterly.
Okay, we'll take Michelle and then Jim. Can we? Sorry.
Can I say something about that topic?
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna have to come up here.
Stay in order.
If anybody thinks they have to add this, you're not doing your taxes right. This is for anybody who already charged the 6% or whatever you're already charging is 1% more than that. So it's not doing anything.
Thank
You're
you.
already doing taxes, you're doing it right.
Right. As
1%.
There's our lister.
a
Michelle.
business owner,
registered with the state of Vermont. Applewoods pays a quarterly sales tax. It's a one-page form. The only thing that changes, two things change. One, we add that 1%, which is paid by the person who's buying the table. The only difference is that instead of filing a paper form, the extra 1% means I have to file online. That's it.
Okay. We do have on the remote side, someone wanted to know about hay. I'm sorry if I caused the problem there. I would assume hay is considered a farm product and would not be included. And then Paul did ask if the remote participants can speak. Yes, you can. Does someone have something they want to say?
Yeah, this is Paul Butler from Lower Dover Road. Let me give you an example I'm aware of in Marlboro, because I'm wondering, did anyone do an analysis of how much revenue is expected from this and whether it offsets burdens, because we have so little commercial business activity in our town. The Amesville Marlboro Community Center, which I was formerly the treasurer, our memberships, everyone pays an annual membership of like $174 to be able to use the beach and participate in the Ames Hill Association. And all our members pay Vermont sales tax because the Ames Hill Association is 501c7 under federal tax law. So I guess we would have to go through our list, and anyone who's a member from Marlboro, we charge them the 1%. Anyone who's a member from West Brattleboro, we charge them the current, I believe it's 6% or something. And so we have that extra administrative burden for a very small amount of money. And I'm just wondering
how they're going to
what kind of analysis has been done here in the context of Marlboro that has so little commercial activity.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul. I think we're all learning a lot. Jim was next to speak, and then I'll recognize Forrest.
Thank you, Jim Herrick. I have a question, and maybe it can't be answered in this format, about the nitty-gritty of a situation for hypothetically myself building a pond. It could be said I'm selling a pond. I'm charging for my equipment at rates per hour, but the end product is the sale of a pond, or it could be a road, or it could be a house. The items that I buy, I pay at purchase to the vendor, the state 6% tax. So I don't have to deal with anything other than, I don't add that at my point of billing. It's woven into the full product. I've paid it at my point of purchase. I have no idea how I would deal with a $100,000 construction project. Is that a sale?
Forrest, you were next anyway. You have a
Service.
thought on that?
Couple things. Paul Butler, to address your question, my analysis was to talk to 4 other towns who have done this, added this through the state. One of them is Brattleboro. So when you were saying the members in Brattleboro wouldn't be paying it, they're already paying it because Brattleboro has the 1% tax, as does Wilmington. The analysis from the town of Montgomery, which is about the size of us, it's up in the northern part of the state. They got, so they had done a like $5 million wastewater in their village, and the taxpayers were paying it off little by little, and the governance of the town saw that this is an opportunity we can take to try to offset this. They were making between $60,000 and $70,000 a year just paying down that the principal on what they had borrowed to do that work. So that's the way that their municipality is doing it. This is going to become a lot more common. The tax department is really recommending this because again, it's a consumption tax. And then Jim, is just quickly, as far as your question goes, I don't really know. That's a question for the state of Vermont. If you're already paying 6% and the work is in Marlboro, it's going to mean it's 7%. And the person that's buying a $100,000 pond from you, that 1%'s not moving the needle.
No, I think my point is not
Okay.
about that, but
Okay.
rather the aspect of what falls into the category, because one example I can give is buying loads of gravel. Some vendors charge
Yeah.
state tax on the actual product
Okay.
and not on the trucking. The trucking is 50% of the value of a load of gravel. Others charge on the entire thing. So it seems to me like there's a big area of grayness, and especially as you get into more complex and larger units of issue and money.
One other thing that the state said is that, so the tax is levied where the product ends. So if you're getting a Amazon package, the product ends when it's on your doorstep, your address is Marlboro, you pay the 1% tax. If you're getting stone in Vernon, Vernon doesn't have the 1% tax, you're getting the product in Vernon, you're not paying 1% tax. So the intricacies of this and who's getting fried by the tax department seems highly unlikely to me, because you're already a business owner, you're paying quarterly tax. If it shows up, then it shows up. I don't know what to say. So from the point of view of the listers who are about to do a townwide reappraisal, this is one way to take a little bit of heat off of all of our necks. So it's an option. The other part of it is that it can be, if we do this for 2 years and we're not realizing the kind of income we'd like to see, simple vote makes it go away. Thank you.
Good point.
There was there was a request from the audience. I'm just saying there's a request from the audience to possibly, if you could summarize the question from the floor. If not, we're
Okay.
going to have people walk up here and stand here and say their question.
I'll try to do that. I think this is a very educational experience for all of you out there, and joining the audience here, me included. Yes, sir.
Quick question for clarification. Does this apply to real estate sales?
Does this apply to real estate sales?
I don't believe so, because the tax department's already getting that through the property transfer tax return.
Another fine point to this issue. Clarence?
Oh.
Just a reminder, sales taxes of necessity are retrogressive taxes. We have fine listers who have a better handle on who can afford to pay for our town services. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to try to restate that for the audience. I believe, Clarence, that you said that sales tax is inherently a consumption tax. Is it not a progressive tax?
Consumption tax is a progressive tax.
Right.
By definition.
Thank you.
One last question. What about house builders? I think that falls under, similar to Jim's question. If you buy your lumber in Brattleboro, you're paying, and you pick it up in Brattleboro, you're paying you're paying Brattleboro's 1% tax. If you have it delivered to Marlboro before this goes into effect, you're not paying the 1% tax on your lumber. That's the best of my understanding. If people, and I would just say this in general, if people have a lot of doubts and questions about this, vote this down for now, and we can do even more research and bring it up again. It's, that's
All right, we'll take Dan MacArthur first and then Nancy.
So Dan MacArthur, I just want to say I built homes for 50 years and I always paid the sales tax when I bought the materials. I never sold anyone a home that I felt like I needed to then pay the tax on the home. So I think that's analogous to your pond, Jim. Nobody's ever come after me and said you should have done that. And
hold on, let me, wait a minute, Elon's coming for you.
All right, let's have order here.
So Nancy Anderson again. I think that the point is that this particular article doesn't change anything about the existing state regulations about what is taxable or not taxable. So if anyone has any questions, you can go to the existing state regulations to determine whether something is or isn't taxable. This doesn't change that at all.
Good point.
Right.
Two more from on the remote if you want.
Okay, I was just thinking that was a nice summary of what we.
Okay, well, it's real
Go
quick.
ahead.
One is, when will this go into effect? If it passes, it will go into effect
July 1st.
July 1st, if it passes. And then the second question was, are all online orders, products, takeout, eligible for this tax? The question is, if it shows up on your doorstep, yes, it is. And you don't, as the recipient, you don't have to do anything. Amazon will they get a record of which towns are charging extra taxes, and they do it all for, as the recipient of the stuff, you have nothing to do. You just have to pay Amazon, or Blue Cross Blue Shield, or whoever.
All right, thank you. Are we ready to move on? Audience, attending roughly, we're all set?
Okay.
Okay, we're not even having a question anymore. We've got to keep it going here. Nobody votes here. Okay, number 7 is to see if the town will vote to raise an appropriate $4,500, $4,500, that's $1,500 each, to pay a yearly stipend for the town's three-member select board. It's really these three here, assuming Molly's reelected. Is there any discussion? Questions? All right, I will just say on behalf of the town that we appreciate your work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we do recognize, I believe, all of us. We all also recognize that there really is no value to put on your work. It's really
Priceless.
priceless. Can't figure out the
Don't you give them a big head.
All right, here we go. Article 8. Nobody at home that's saying something for free. Article 8, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate this dollar amount to be filled in.
$736.
Oh, yeah, sorry. $736,650.
Okay, it's in your town report, right, correctly?
Yeah.
I have this town report here, maybe I should stick back.
Yeah, you go to that until you get to 22, because then
Okay,
there are like
that's where there is the way.
322s.
Okay, my apologies to the audience. The number is $736,650, general fund. That's Article 8. Any discussion or questions regarding that article?
Have people had
General fund certainly has a complete report.
ample time to look at the papers that we distributed at one of our meetings?
And they were on the website, too.
And they're in the website. So very nicely broken out. In the interest of transparency, we have forced Rebecca to make everything little categories, so it's not like
Not so many lumps.
Yeah, not so many lumps. So we're slowly making it so that things are named properly, so you can tell exactly where money's going. So I have one copy, if anyone would like this one copy.
And it is all in the town report.
Oh, it's in the town report.
Right.
So it's going up a bit. Right, Rebecca?
Yes,
How much is it going up from last year?
it was 570 something last year. Yeah, 570, 400 last year.
Yep.
Anything from the remote people?
Nothing?
Hands, questions? Little yellow hand?
Okay.
Nope,
Okay.
nothing.
Right. Thank you for your careful consideration and review those numbers carefully to your satisfaction. Determine your vote. Article 9, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $1,291,450 for town highways, summer and winter maintenance. Time for questions?
So that's up.
Yes, please.
Mohar, Route 9.
Yeah.
Is there anything remarkable about the, that we should note in terms of a change from last year, or anything different in that part of the budget that we should know about?
Are there some highlights, I think is what the question is.
Yeah, where are the-
Highlight the big increases.
Well, we are trying to,
Good.
we are trying to upgrade the equipment. We have loans that we're paying in high chunk levels so that they'll be paid off in 5 years, in 4 years, in 3 years, they'll all be paid off. So some of those loans are jacking up the amount of the budget because we wanted to get free of them so that we can then start. The long-range plan is to start setting aside capital funds so that we don't get caught by surprise when one of the trucks develops brain problems or limb problems or something. So we're trying to be a little bit more proactive about it. And in terms of this addition, I think there was increased expenses of the aggregates, the gravel and the sand, and the things are going, anything that needs to be trucked is becoming more expensive. So I think that that's mainly where the increases are.
Rebecca?
Okay.
Rebecca.
Just to help out a little bit, Rebecca from North Pond Road. A little bit of that was the insurance, and a little bit of the, payroll going up a little bit and stuff like that. So there was a little bit of changes to, that as well.
Yeah, health insurance, we took a hit on health insurance.
Yeah.
And so it's about $100,000 more than it was last year.
Thank you, Green Mountain Health Board.
Gail.
Gail MacArthur, I'm wondering on page 24 where there's a summary of highway income and expense budget. Down near the bottom, total revenue. I'm just curious why that's down so much from the last couple of years.
Rebecca?
Rebecca 70, North Pine Road.
Yeah, you don't have to keep saying that, we'll get it.
Sorry.
Very good.
That has to do a lot with, the state gives us funds for class 2 and class 3 roads. And what's happened is, if something happens to the roads, like 23, we had some washouts. There was a bunch of flooding in 24. So the state gives us that early. And it's happened for the last 2 years. So right now, I'm only expecting 2 payments in July and August. Now, if anything should happen, the state might throw us the money, and then we would get that full amount. But it's happened for the last couple of years.
So this total here, 75, is the remaining of what they haven't given us already.
They owe us July and August of 2025. That's
Okay.
what they'll.
But they paid, it would have been higher, but they paid us in advance so that we could fix the washouts.
Yeah, and in 22, we got 2 extras, so we got actually 6 payments in 22.
Uh-huh.
So if you look in 23.
Yeah, the question is going across the columns, those of you at home too, if you go across the columns in the town report, you can see that 75,000 is pretty low compared to previous years. And, Rebecca's just explained that has to do with emergency, basically declarations of disaster and emergencies. So, that's kind of good. We don't anticipate a disaster this year, right? Not good to plan on disasters, but it's not all. Okay. Anybody home?
Yep, hold on a second. Just for the people at home, what Gail was asking for is on page 24 of the town report, which I actually am sharing to you folks right now. She had just had a question about the highway revenue. And to which Gail responded, I think probably, which Rebecca responded, is that it's really a question of when the state is sending us money, and they tend to pre-send money. And so we're not quite sure if we're going to get the pre-send money from 26 into 25. So that's what, I hope that answers, I hope that reiterates what Gail said. Gail, is it about what?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Others from remote attendees?
Let me check. Anything else from the remotes? Nope, we're all good?
We have 2 kinds of residents here, the remotes and the real. Okay. Article 10.
Glad you said
Yeah, well, I'm not voted or elected or anything. Article 10. Oh, we got somebody?
I'm so sorry. I wanted to add to the income for the highway. Nick and Andrew try very hard in checking for grants and stuff like that from the state and anywhere we can. So that was part of that too.
And we're still working that. We're still working that issue.
You're not changing the number on the.
It was past years.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for threatening those people. Yes.
For
Go ahead.
clarification,
Yeah.
Mohart, Nick, you said you're still working on it. Does that mean that 75,000 might change? Is it
Yeah, I mean,
possibility?
because there's always,
Yeah.
I'm always getting emails from various VTrans, OAT and stuff saying, grant application starting July, and we got one from Passif, which is our VLCT place, and we got some for signs, so they're always flowing in and out. And Kate and I have been working with the AARP because there's some potential stuff that you can get for roads and stuff that's meant to make things nicer and better for, people over 50.
Aged people
Aged
like
people,
ourselves.
like me, I'm 67, so.
Right. It's really a strategic guess, about what.
Yeah, and it's just, we can't estimate it at this point, so to put it in just doesn't,
Rather not count on it before we get it, that's for sure.
Yeah, like we're getting another $5,000 from FEMA because if.
I was gonna say.
If.
Okay, onward.
Let's move on.
Article 10.
Unless someone objects here, let's move on. Article 10, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $35,000 to the Marlboro Volunteer Fire Company Incorporated to help defray operating expenses. This is commonly an article, but if there are questions, I'm certainly ready to entertain them. Anyone?
Isn't this lower than last year?
Yes.
All right, the audience at home may recognize that this is lower than last year.
It was 38,500 last year.
So it was 38.5 last year, now they're asking for 35,000. Any questions on home front? Here we got.
Do we have to go
Patty?
through all of these?
Well, actually, it's interesting. If we were in a town meeting, this group could decide to pass over articles and not do it. But I'm really being quite loyal to the town in terms of trying to make sure that everyone's had an opportunity to speak these different ones. As you may know, I'm eager to leave any time. But here we go. Article 11. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $50,000 to the Marlboro Volunteer Fire Company Incorporated for capital improvements for essential vehicles, facility, and equipment repairs and upgrades. So now this is the capital part of the services that are provided to support the services provided by the Volunteer Fire Company to our town. Are there questions? Do you want to speak to this, Carol, on behalf? Okay, fine. I won't put you on the spot. Anybody out there want to ask about this? Question?
Nothing
No?
so far.
Nothing so far. I know there are some, serious needs, and their meetings are certainly welcome any of you to come and participate in the work of that volunteer group.
So just as an intro to the next group of
Yeah.
articles, we broke all the charitable giving out into individual articles last year to see if anybody wanted to get rid of any of them. And then this year we decided to put them into 3 categories, and one of the categories is splayed out here. And then on the last page, you'll see that others are grouped together. So just so the next.
Right, from Article 12 down to Article 21, right?
Yes, 21.
21. I think that's where the correction is on the
Yes,
paper you gave me, right?
correct.
So those of you at home too, on your town reports, down to 21, which is the one about $1,800 to Marlboro Cares for Services. Those are all separated, listed separately for your voters' attention and decision. And then Molly's taking pains to point out, when you get to Article 22, it actually includes a number of groups. The mover, for example, it's the Green Mountain RSVP, and that's in the chart on your town report, right?
Mm-hmm. So one vote takes care of all of those.
So the one vote, yes or no, is required on Article 22, and Article 23 is similarly grouped for purposes the Select Board advises and supports. I am now going to just run through quickly if there are any of these. I think it's important that the voters recognize that there is that opportunity to say yes or no to quite a number of these different
For people's
appeals.
ease, I'm going to put it up on the screen, and also for our remote people, so they can
Good.
see it while you're reading it off.
Yeah. So the first one is for Rescue Inc., that's Article 12, 21,309.75. That is, confirmed, Rachel, that's determined by our per capita. It's what our census for 2020 was, right?
And it is lower than last year.
Despite the fact that our census is quite a bit up. Nobody knows why, but we won't.
Well, no, the
details
census
about
was the same last year as it was this year.
Oh, yeah, I understand. Well, sorry, you're right. 2020 census was up quite a bit from previous. All right, Article 3, questions? Anybody? We'll move along as expeditiously as possible. $5,000 for Deerfield Valley Rescue, Inc. We have 2 rescue services. Deerfield Valley is very proximate to the western.
Hold on one
part of
second.
town.
Peggy
Peggy
has a question.
Good.
I was going to wait, I was trying to wait until we got to Article 16.
Oh, okay. I'll call on you when we get to Article 16.
Thanks for the heads up. Anything on that? I just wanted to explain there are 2 different rescues serving the town from different directions. Article 14, and this one is about $40,000 for the removal of the former first aid building at Hogback Mountain Conservation Area.
I could speak on that a little bit.
And I think some people would like to know
Yeah.
where that is and what's up. Thank you, Molly.
Yeah, so this is a one-timer, so I would have placed it in a different point in the articles, but this is a problem that's been hovering over our heads since even before I came on the board, which is there is a building on Hogback, which is a great danger. People can fall in and break their necks and sue the town for millions of dollars. And we would have just bulldozed it or burned it, but it's got asbestos and vermiculite in it. And we spent about a year trying to figure out if there was a grant that we could use to clean up brown sites, but apparently when the land trust, the whole agreement went on, somebody did not check a proper box. So we can't have access to those brown fields monies. But so we tried to get various people to share the cost. The cost. They have what do you call it? An endowment. No go. So we decided finally to put it to the voters to say, would you please allow us to take care of that building? And apparently, since, according to Mike Purcell, it's decayed even more, so it might be a little bit cheaper to ameliorate the environmental dangers.
But just to clarify, you're not advising the voters to wait.
Right.
To get cheaper.
No, we won't spend, if it's cheaper than that, we won't spend.
We have lucked out for the past year, but we.
That's right, so that is of very high importance for us.
All right. Questions from?
Yeah, I missed a couple of questions. I apologize to the people. There was a question going back to the highway budget. What are the capital funds on the highway budget?
We haven't got any yet.
That's the question.
0.
Rebecca, I guess the question better be repeated. Is it on chat there? You have it?
Yeah. What are capital
50,000.
funds on the highway budget?
50,000.
Right. But is that what they're asking, what the amount is?
I'm saying, what are capital funds on the highway budget?
What are we talking about spending?
$50,000, what does it buy?
Right, that's what I thought. It's just putting money aside, it's like a savings account for future vehicle purchases.
Right. If you go way back in the history of Vermont town meetings, you'll remember the sinking bus fund. As a new resident to the town, I was always wondering why the buses were sinking.
No, sinking, it's called bus sinking fund.
Oh, bus sinking, why the buses were sinking. But this really was putting money away in anticipation of the need in the future.
Okay, then there was a question for Carol Ann. How many active firefighters do we have?
12.
12?
We need more.
We need more?
There's a spot for
then,
you.
all I have is an initial, but T asked, is there a formal 5 to 10 year plan?
What's the question to me?
No, I think it's to the board here. Is
For
there a
what?
formal 5 or 10 year plan?
You mean a financial plan, or what?
I'm just reading the
Can we
question.
clarify the question,
That's
please?
T. Wilson.
Mr. Wilson, could you clarify your question?
No, that was Tim.
Tim, can you clarify your question?
Is it focused on the?
If you want to unmute and just ask it, go ahead.
You're probably right.
Is it focused on?
Am I, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Yes, we can, Tim.
Okay, I was, I've heard that there's desire to reconfigure the buildings at the town yard, and I was wondering if there was a 5 or 10 year formal 5 or 10 year plan as to what that might look like.
Good question. Thank you for the clarification.
At the garage?
Yeah.
Well, we are looking for a way to reconfigure buildings so as to make room for the school buses. And also public access to the sand pile, because the sand pile is too dangerous for people to go down, especially at this time of year. If you go down and shovel at the bottom of the sand pile, you're likely to get buried. So they want to build a shed up top for public to come and get sand, but also one of the main things is how could we rearrange things a little bit so that there's room for the buses, because we're kicking the buses out of their little home so that those $800 million machines can park in there.
Okay, Tim, that's the word on
So
the
there's-
plan. I don't think they're specific on the timeline yet or something.
No, we haven't got an official plan, but we are it's early stages.
Early stages of discussion. So pay close attention to the select board meetings and participate as you would like to see things happen.
Come and help.
Anything else up to this point? Excuse me, from the remotes.
We were up to Article
15.
We were up to Article 14. I think we're about to address Article 15.
Correct.
15 is $3,234 to Southeast Vermont Economic Development Strategy, SEBEDS, for services. If there may be questions, but I know we have a representative here. We did earlier. Yes, very good. From SEBEDS, please introduce yourself.
Sure, I'm Meg Steloff. I actually work for BDCC, which is associated with SEBEDS. So SEBEDS is the Regional Economic Development Strategy work that kind of helps make BDCC more than just a small business loan provider. It means we do regional workforce development. We do support for capacity for nonprofit organizations and municipalities, in addition to all the business kind of traditional economic development work that we do. So it's been really important to us to have broad-based support. So we ask every town in the Wyndham region, we go to a lot of town meetings, a lot of select board meetings, for $3 per person to help support that work. Marlboro actually looked back and was one of the original towns, the first towns that joined Brattleboro in funding our work. So Marlboro has funded us annually since 2013. So that was nice to look up. So thank you very much. And how that money gets used is to help support that programming that benefits, across the region. So we asked by census number because our programs are in schools, we're working with employers, we're working with small businesses, we're working with municipalities, we're working with nonprofit organizations all across our region. So our work really touches a lot of people. A lot of it is sort of behind the scenes, but the funding that we get through municipal funding is used to support those programs, often used to help us leverage that money, for example, to get funds. A lot of federal grants require a one-to-one match. So we'll use that municipal funding as a way to keep programs going and to sort of double down on that money. So if anyone has questions, I have some annual reports I can leave with you, but we appreciate that funding year over year. And it was nice to look back and say, well, Marlboro is one of the original towns. So we have like 22 towns last year, which represents about 86% of Wyndham County's population did support us one way or another. So thank you.
I know the annual report's available at town office, is it? Are there copies there for us? Can you confirm that? Yeah. Okay, and Clarence?
It's also available on the website.
It's also available on the website, of course, yeah. Question, Clarence?
Does the animal report, which is the.
Cannot hear.
Town office,
Clarence, we can't hear a word you're saying.
salaries, work.
It does not, here, you can, feel free to tell it or someone, it does not, it just talks about our, how it basically states our income and our, any overage, and in some years, we may show that we have money left over, funds may carry over, and I just always want to stress to people, we have to have cash in hand for federal grants, so we may get a grant from the USDA that's a 3-year grant, and we have to show that we have the matching funds in hand for 3 years. So sometimes it looks like, oh gosh, we have money, but that money may be obligated, and so we, we don't say, oh, we don't need the money just because it shows that we had an overage 1 year to the next. Oftentimes we have to put up like $250,000 in advance. Yes.
On page 67.
I'd like to repeat the question.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I think Clarence was asking about the compensation or salaries of individuals at Sevens.
So Sevens has no employees at all. So Sevens is separate from BDCC. Sevens is an organization that has no staff or no employees. It's got a separate board and separate governance, and it's associated with BDCC. So Sevens itself has no staff.
And there's a parallel in Bennington County, right? BDCC doesn't. Does BDCC cover Bennington County? No.
They have, that's covered. They have the Bennington County Industrial Corporation, but that's covered under the Bennington County Regional Commission.
Yeah.
They have it's complicated.
In
Wyndham County, we have a regional planning commission and we have an economic development. Sevens is separate. It's an organization that has no staff, so it will provide funding for programs for BDCC.
In both areas too, both counties. It's all Southern Vermont, sorry.
So I was just going to say,
yeah.
on 67, there's a specific report of Southeastern Vermont Community Action
67 in your town report.
in the town.
Yeah.
Of specifically what types of projects have been paid for by that money with additional funds.
I don't necessarily think we should spend more time on this, but I have to say that I'm closely related to this. I'm your representative for Deerfield Valley Communications Union District, aka also doing business as dbfiber.net, and we will be connecting people in this next quarter in Marlboro through that network. I just mentioned that this network has been this municipality, which is of 24 towns. We're only one member of this 24 town. I keep saying supervisory communications union district, and we have benefited from Sevens. We've been at their conferences, we've been on panels. We actually received recognition for our effect on economic development by making sure that regardless of your location, you're going to be connected by fiber. And unfortunately, I know there are many of you, I see droopy faces knowing that you're not going to be connected by the present grant we have. But we are determined, our board is determined to continue through to get every location in our 24 member towns connected to high-speed internet, preferably our high-speed internet, which is community-owned, community-operated. The fee structure is set by the community, this board, and I'm a proponent of that approach to a very important utility, even though it's unregulated. Okay, you can thank me again when you get to Article 16, to see if the town, this is $408 for Animal Resource Fund. I think this may be the one that Peggy wanted to speak to, I think.
Peggy, you're on.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to say I'm always surprised every year that people vote no about this because what I want everybody to understand is that instead of taking the stipend that the town would pay me for being animal control officer, I donate it to ARF. So I don't take any income from being animal control officer, and I donate it to ARF to help, which is the Animal Resource Fund, which is to help people with licenses, vet bills, or whatever. So trying to help people who need help. And so I just wish people would vote yes on it. I mean, it passes every year. I just want people to understand that this is not a willy-nilly article.
Thank you, Peggy. I think the town wants to thank you as well, and appreciate your service. Moving on to Article 7, unless there's something more. 17 is $3,000 support the Marlboro Mixer newsletter. I know I read it. I like it. I don't know who else wants to say anything about it. But,
I just wish that it was available to all Marlboro residents.
Yeah.
Because so far they haven't figured out that we
how
have
to get it out
5
to
zip
everybody.
codes in the town and only some are getting it. I don't know this for a fact, but I've heard it.
Well, I would like to say that we have reached out every mixer to please email Meg if you aren't getting the mixer. So people need to take action and either email Marlboro Alliance or Meg McCarthy, or write us a letter, because we are open to snail mail or email to every resident in town.
Okay.
They have to know what your actual address is. That we can't expect them to, as Molly says, the mail services don't comply to what we're trying to get done, because we live in a lot of different zip codes and mailing delivery systems. Okay, we're going to move on. Article 18 is $5,000 for the Marlboro Community Center to support its mission and to create a welcoming environment which supports, nurtures, and enriches the Marlboro community through its programs. In case you're not familiar, that is really the first floor of the Congregational Church, Church of Christ, I think it is officially, in Marlboro Center. Any questions or comments?
Nothing here.
Okay. I'm often there. You want to see me? I'm open for DB Fiber office hours every day I show up. We've got Article 19. To see if the town will raise $500 to support the Marlboro Library, which resides in the Marlboro Community Center. Any questions or comments? I think also the library's responsible for the book, what do they call them, little bookie houses?
Little book houses?
Yeah, little book houses around town.
Little libraries. I don't
No,
think
that's
so.
something different?
Yep.
Oh, well, I'm glad I'm corrected. There's one of those.
Otherwise
outside
known
the
as
town
Lowell's
office.
Generation Depots.
Who does that?
I don't know.
I think neighborhoods do it.
Okay, well, okay, we praise whoever it is, thank you. That's a very good learning for me, thank you. I just associate that with London. Okay, Article 20, to see if the town is going to raise $5,000 for the Marlboro Meeting House to be applied to the operation and maintenance of the building in support of a variety of municipal and community programs held therein. Now we're referring to the building, the structure, and not the religious aspect, but the facility to.
Just a quick on the library. JW said the library started the little libraries before we had a space.
Ah, well, thank you very much. I've seen
Thank
those
you,
little libraries
JW.
elsewhere in the world. I mean,
Yeah,
they're
they're
in
all over the
Brattleboro
place.
too. There are lots of places. It's a great thing. But I'm getting back to the building. Any questions, comments there?
Nothing here.
Thank you. We have the next, Article 21 is $1,800 for Marlboro Cares for services. I hope you're all familiar with what Marlboro Cares does, but if you have a question, please speak up now, for the benefit of all of us. All right. Marlboro basically cares, that's what that's about. So, if you have a need, get a hold of Marlboro Cares. That's the Marlboro line.
This is Peggy.
Peggy has a comment.
Yeah, I just want to say a comment just because just like but the Marlboro Cares, the Marlboro Library, the Marlboro Mixer, somehow we need to do a better job of reaching new people moving in I was talking to a resident yesterday who wasn't aware of all the things that Marlboro Cares did, even though I know you guys, they publish stuff, but can we do a better job of communicating all the things that the different groups do so that people can use the services? I mean, if you don't read the Mixer, how do you know to sign up for the Mixer?
Front Porch Forum.
Thank you, but Patty has a question.
Marlboro Cares sends welcome information to every new resident in town. So
Right.
I don't know how it missed them.
Okay, I'll just restate this for people remotely. Patty Webster reports that Marlboro Cares does send a package of a welcome to to town for any new resident in town. And if there's if somebody's been missed, please let Marlboro Cares know. Thank you.
And this is Peggy again. I was going to say, I was talking to a person who's been a longtime resident and didn't know all the services. So I don't know why that is, but it's not just Marlboro Cares, but I think it's also the mixer, etc. So it's just food for thought.
All right, thank you, Peggy. It's a good point.
Just another comment.
Yeah.
Sometimes people don't get Marlboro Cares until they need it, and then they're all over it and want to help and be part of it. But it goes over their heads sometimes.
I will say, as town administrator, I sometimes will get emails or phone calls, and if it's something like that, I always direct them either to the community center, to Marlboro Cares, to the Marlboro Alliance. If it's not a select board purely town thing, I do direct them to that.
Yes, Gail.
Just a general thing that all of these organizations have reports in the town report. So you can find
Marlboro
out what they're
Cares,
doing by
page
reading
35.
Page 35 on annual report. And I think the sincerity of the comments and the participation in this topic are a credit to the town, indicate that Marlboro really does care about everyone in the community. Article 22 is a group article. I think the select board is trying to move towards greater efficiency. Patty, I think you spoke earlier, but we have to go through all these articles. And this is an attempt to group some in a logic that certainly was a struggle for the board, I'm sure, but come up with a grouping. And this group has the mover for $250, the Green Mountain RSVP and Volunteer Center $230, the Gathering Place for Adult Care Services $500, Brattleboro Area Hospice $250, the Southeast Vermont Community Affairs, Community Action Incorporated, I think that's SEVCA, isn't it? Is that what that one is? $970. And Deerfield Valley Food Pantry, $500. And the Healthcare and Rehabilitation Services of Southern Vermont, $1,050. I welcome any discussion of these particular organizations that would benefit by a positive vote on this. The total amount is $3,750. You unfortunately will not have the opportunity on the ballot to distinguish among them or say you like this one, you don't like that one. But the select board is trying to give you an opportunity to understand that the ballot's going to get longer and longer once we're able to group some. Oh, Jeff, you got something to say that? Go ahead.
2 years ago when we did it, all of these donations were all under one list. You had one line item to vote on. There was complaints because people couldn't put in their didn't like or likes. So last year we split them all out into individual line items, which amounted to a very long evening of vote counting.
And they all passed.
And they all passed. And people still want this opportunity to say, no, I don't want to give there. And what we're looking at is doing 3 separate groups. You see the 2 that are here. The first group is Article 15 through Article 21. Next year, those articles will all be grouped into one grouping. Those that are listed in Article 22 will have individual line items next year. The following year, Article 23 will be individual line items, and the other 2 will be in 2 groups to vote on. So we're trying to give the opportunity to say no, without saying no to everybody, but also not making it so arduous on tallying the votes that we're just trying to keep it moving forward and still give opportunities.
So every 3 years, each one comes up, another group comes up.
Right.
Individualized.
3-year rotation.
It's an interesting strategy. I'm sure we feel it.
Any comments from the Zoom gallery?
Yes. Well, I would point out, if you don't like that strategy that Jeff just presented, come to the meetings, information meetings, prior to the next time they have to put together the article. Because
Or a regular select board meeting.
Well, yeah.
Well, but especially the
information meeting where a
we're
group
begging
gives it
you
and
to
there's
help
some
us
discussion.
put it together.
Because if you got a better idea about how to address that issue, they're certainly open to that. Jeff.
I was just going to say, come help count votes.
Well,
Tally volunteers.
okay.
You have a question?
There is something, yes.
Just a quick thing. I wonder, would we maybe in the future be allowed to vote to fund those chunks of different
Groups?
groups, for 3 years? And then to take them off the ballot for the next 2 years? A lot less voting.
Interesting.
Lot less counting.
Yeah, it's.
Maybe.
Go ahead, Forrest, you've got.
Hi, Mo. The issue is that many of these organizations have asked for the same amount each year for as long as I can remember. So they would remain on there unless they tell us not. So the visiting nurses of Vermont and New Hampshire contacted Nick saying that they have moved out of this area, so we're no longer giving them $37.50. So these numbers have gone down. So that's the only case where this number changes, and each of the organizations communicates with the town, both asking for payment as well as saying, yes, we'd like our money again.
And to clarify, the process for getting added to the list is petition. Signed petition by residents.
And if the amount of money changes,
Yeah,
then
you
a
have to
petition needs
petition
to be
again.
done for 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Staley McDermott, Notes Pond Road. I've counted ballots for a long time, and last year was the first time. I didn't mind the extra time to count the extra votes, because I think it's important not only in determining the amount of money that goes to someplace, but an indication of people's support for these different organizations. And I think it's important to stay or to go back. I would support going back to the single votes for everybody, even though democracy is kind of a pain sometimes. It really lets people say what they want.
Thank you. Other questions or comments?
None here.
All right. I'm sorry, yeah.
Sorry.
Second.
As your treasurer, just to let you know, that does add to a cost, though I do agree it was nice to be able to vote on each thing. But the paper and the time that Forrest has to do does add to the cost. So just being your treasurer, I want to throw it out there.
Do you have an estimate of the cost, or are you saying that?
Don't Forrest might?
You got a ballpark figure or what?
Probably not significant, but.
Yeah.
Well, we gotta pay them.
I mean, yeah, I can see it either way, and honestly, this is something the voters decide. I get
Yeah,
it.
so I think this is.
For me, the select board has addressed people's questions and has made actions that are clear and will be repeatable. I don't feel like you can do much better than that. So that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I think it really is incumbent upon all of us who have an idea about, as you stated, Staley, to come to those information meetings so the board benefits from that input prior to them putting this, because they certainly struggle over these issues about how to balance the various interests of the town to make sure everything is.
Stephen, if I can just,
done up.
when we did each individual item 2 years ago, as I said, they all passed by huge margins. Potentially, and let's talk about this next year, next fall, is that maybe we do this for 3 or 4 years and then we go back and do them all again and see what, but let's come in and talk in the fall.
Okay, and certainly as someone may disappear depending on what we hear from that organization.
We did have a comment from AB that he said he agrees with Staley on this point.
All right, thank you.
So you got one, Staley.
I'm ready to move on to 23 because it's a similar issue.
Yep.
This is Groundworks Collaborative, $1,500. Youth Services, $1,000. Women's Freedom Center, $1,200. The American Red Cross Green Mountain Division, I think, is $500. Senior Solutions, $400. Green Up Vermont, $100. And Grace Cottage Hospital, $1,000. Any questions or comments about those?
Anything
Once again,
from
you
the
gotta
Zoom?
You got to vote yes or no on the whole
I
group.
do believe we put these together because they're all not in Marlboro.
Uh-huh.
And we spent some time trying to decide which was health and which was emergency services, and then sort of came up with this. So the first bunch is Marlboro-centric, the second bunch is mixed with
More
healthcare, and then the third one is more social
Okay.
support.
All right, well, as you can see, the select board has thought about this. Whether it satisfies or suits everybody, it remains to be seen. So express your opinion. I think they have, this Article 24 is actually legally quite important, but not too controversial. And that is to see if the voters of the town will vote to authorize the town to borrow money in anticipation of revenue. I'd like to explain this for those of you not familiar. Often the revenue from our taxes has not arrived in time to pay the bills. And if the town has to pay the bills, they have to borrow the money to do it, in anticipation of the taxes that have been levied.
Which costs
Revenue.
us.
And it costs, you have to pay interest on it. It's not as much as a private enterprise might have to do, pay to borrow money, but it is, it's a pretty sure deal on the part of the banks. Yes, there's something more to say.
Just want to add to that, I am looking at a bank product where the interest would be offset by them investing. So it'll be the first time we do it. So the offset, we may not pay little to no interest on borrowing.
Well, if you want to know more about that, talk to Rebecca.
Was there any questions from Zoom on what Rebecca just said? Do you need it repeated for you, or? Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, those of you curious about what instruments you may be talking about, I think they should talk to her directly about that. Jim?
Just a general question in this regard, because I somehow sitting here missed over any discussion about Article 5, which was the splitting up of the tax collection into 2 points, and maybe.
Oh, yeah, it came.
It came in
Yeah,
Bible, and I
yeah.
was asleep.
But the reason is because it actually had something to do with the previous one,
Okay, so you got
We
time
took
to-
up 4 about October
Right,
due
right.
date, and then the second one was the second part of it. If you have a comment on it, you're
Well, the
welcome.
comment ties now to this final borrowing of money.
Yeah.
So I wondered, because one of the arguments for splitting up into 2 payments would be for the town to have fluidity of funds earlier in the year and not have to borrow money. And my discussion about this last time was that we, the taxpayers, also may have to borrow money to pay our taxes. So I'm wondering what rate the town pays to borrow money in that regard compared to what rate I borrow money at to pay my taxes.
That's interesting.
It is.
I can tell you this last year, we're paying 6%,
So not tremendously different.
not tremendously different.
And would this new product you were just alluding to have a different impact in that regard?
It should, at least, I went to a training this last year where a bank presented this at a treasurer's meeting for the state of Vermont. And the documentation that they provided, that town, and I think it was Killington, didn't have to pay any interest. But I think it really does have to do with how interest rates and all that kind of stuff are going. But most of the time, Killington said, their treasurer said that they little to absolutely none interest paid with this product. By the bank reinvesting the remaining funds that I haven't used yet. And so the offset of what the interest is being earned to how much was used.
So I think the question that I have is, does what you say advise us to vote to continue to pay once a year? Or does it indicate that we should be paying twice a year?
Well, that kind of is
What's
what I
the
was
trade-off?
wondering.
Because the other thing I've heard about this from other towns is that some people prefer to pay in 2 payments. It's easier for them. Here we have a presentation that says, well, it doesn't always the case, Depends on your business, and if your business is cyclical, seasonal or whatever, you may have a different situation. So do you have a summary statement of advice as our treasurer about that?
The hope is that I won't have to borrow or won't have to borrow so long.
If you do two payments.
If you have two
If I have two payments in funds coming in both times. I think Forrest can help with the remainder. There was some other information that he might be able to help with.
I'll get back to the other question out here, Pat, just a minute, go ahead.
So the listers talked about this and decided that the best way to even entertain going forward is to first ask the voters, is this something that you want? We don't have all the answers yet, but if the sense of the town when we count the votes is yes, we'd like that, then we will have more information before it be voted on. Next year wouldn't come into effect until whenever that is, 27, 26, 27. Late, I mean, way later. There'd be a whole nother year before anything changes.
How does the reduction for
The homestead declaration?
homestead declaration work into that?
Be the same.
It would come through earlier, you'd know earlier?
Nope, it would be the same schedule, it's just the bill would be, the bill would have a total amount, let's say it's $5,000, and you would be split into two payments. And so if the first payment's not made, delinquencies on that would start accruing. When the second payment comes in, the person can pay off everything. So those are the realms where Evan is the delinquent tax collector, or if he's elected, which I think he will be.
So if you don't pay your taxes till April?
You'd be delinquent on the first half.
I mean, you don't file your income taxes till April, so when, is the first payment October and then there's one?
In in March. Is to split it essentially as close to 6 months out as possible. So that, but the time frame is the same because the homestead declaration is all based on state income tax.
Whatever you say.
Okay. I'm happy, anyone holler, I'm happy to try to explain.
All right.
Anything from the Zoom?
Right.
The Zoom room?
Okay, I want to thank you all for your attention to these articles and look forward to the ballot, the decision by the ballot. And I think it's the select board's meeting, so Molly, I turn it back over to you for adjournment or whatever.
Yep.
And thank you very much for the opportunity to serve.
Thank you.
Molly, before we close the meeting, anything?
Okay, can we have quiet, please? The folks on Zoom can't hear.
Anything from the Zoom before Molly closes, or Jim has another question?
Jim.
I've been saving this question for the very end, but our moderator ran away before I could ask it. Last year, if I'm saying this correctly, the compilation of tax increase across from the town budget and the school budget was around 19%. If anybody has something different. So I'm wondering, has anybody put together this year, treasurer possibly, a totality of what we will see over and above the 19% of last year for our, if everything passes, for our tax due for this year?
We haven't done that yet, but we also don't know what the state's gonna do. So what we gave you might not be correct, it would be like an approximate.
Within a point or two, maybe.
Probably.
That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, Forrest, I think, had.
So the calculation that I did that would show this current increase showed the town tax rate going from $1.06 up to maybe $1.30. So not insignificant.
Yeah.
Again, this is the world we're living in, I don't know.
And that's not including the school side.
And that's not including the school side. So, and last year, the homestead school rate was $2. So the town was $1 and change. The school was $2. And the non-residential, it was $1.65 for the school and same $1.06 for the town.
So is it fair to just say very loosely, we're going to see a replication of increase comparable to last year?
No, it's not, and let me kick in on the school portion of that right now. If you look on page 85 of the town report, we already know that according to the budget that we have presented, if it gets passed, that the school tax rate will go from $2 down to $1.89. So we've been trying to get that to reduce somewhat. So the portion of your taxes that you pay on your on your residents toward the school will go down by about, what is that, about 5%, I think.
But I think we have more kids in the school, so it actually will go up.
You know, this is based on what the state, they calculate all that stuff. If you vote on the budget that we are going to talk about in a few minutes, the resident tax rate for educational purposes will go down from $2 to $1.89
Per student.
That's a tax rate. That's based on a dollar of assessment of your
Your property.
list.
Okay.
So it may be a wash and be considerably less than last year, from what I'm hearing, because this is going down
5%, the school tax.
and this is going up 5 or 6%. So I'm not sure how that's going to equate overall, but it sounds to me like it's going to be nowhere near what we had last year for the increase.
I just think this
That's
is a
what I'm hearing.
fairly important, simple way to view the big picture.
Yep.
Is to have something of a figure that actually says, like a personal budget, I gotta come up with.
Understand.
The other variable obviously is the grand list and how much increased property value we find, so that'll buffer it as well, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and the good thing about that from the school, from an educational tax perspective, is that they've already calculated all that ahead of time. The state figured out a way, and I have no idea how they did this, to bypass the CLA. So the numbers that we see coming from the state, those we can count on. And we used to have to wait until we found out what our common level of appraisal was. They no longer make towns do that. So there's a little bit more stability, more understanding of what your tax impact is going to be.
I think let's let
Okay.
the select board do their thing and then we can get into the
Well,
school.
thank you very much for coming to this meeting and being so well informed. Good questions. And I think it's time to adjourn and turn it over to the school board.
And so I suggested we take a break because everybody's going to have to do something, right? So-
Yes, please.
Do I need a vote?
I'll call the meeting to order at, who's got a time?
3:56.
3:56. And because this is an informational meeting, the agenda that we send around simply says we're just going to go over the budget and the tax impact, talk about it. I have been asked to mention the passing of Dick Hamilton. Of Dick Hamilton. At 100 and, I think, 3. Yeah, just a few days ago. So, anyway, much in our hearts and minds because a real icon in the town of Marlboro for his entire life. On that note,
He would have been here today.
he would have been here today.
He is here.
He is here.
He's here.
His motto was show up.
Show
You
up.
gotta show
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
Here, here.
Well, what we have to do now is a lot more mundane than that, but what I'd like to do is ask you to turn in the town report to page 84. No, I'm sorry, not 84. Page 78, the start of the budget. And for people online, Nick is going to track through the budget at the same rate or close to it that we are here. So when I say scroll up, Nick is going to scroll down and we're going to take it, may take us a minute to figure out, oh my God, he's on the wrong page. But the top of page 78, if you flip it sideways, you will see that our budget starts with the revenue, and then it goes through, and I'm going to go through it page by page. But the idea is to try to become familiar with the way the budget is laid out, and these are mandatory categories. The state mandates each category, so we don't have a choice about what we call it. We have, but it is good for us to be able to say, this town spends a certain amount of money for something in a certain category. They can track that with every other town in the state. So there's some advantage to being part of a bigger system. I want to point out that on page 78, if you flip it sideways and go down to the line number
Why is that coming up?
43110. Education spending grant. So that's
I'm getting there, folks.
Okay.
Give me a chance here, hold
Yeah.
on.
Oh, yeah, okay, right. Let's make sure we got it up on the screen.
There we go. Stupid Zoom.
Yes, okay, so there it is.
It's up?
Line
Okay.
43110, education spending grant. That is the total amount of money that we are asking the voters for us to be able to spend. However, I want to point out, and for people who, you don't need to do this, Nick, online, I don't think, for people who are here, turn to page 84, the very bottom line, on the third column in from the right, is $4,088,434. So, and the reason those are different numbers is that our actual expenditures for the coming year, even though there are a few things that we've cut out of the budget, our actual expenditures will be going up for the coming year because of things like teacher health insurance. Teachers do get a step increase in salaries, et cetera. So we actually will be, if this budget passes, we would be authorized to spend a little bit more money than we did last year, despite the cuts that we made. But we ended up last year with a fund balance, which is to say a surplus of, if you look at the bottom of page 84, below that $4 million figure, you'll see $429,000. And so the school board decided, may not be a good idea, but we decided to spend all of that fund balance surplus to reduce the amount of money that we're asking the taxpayers to pay for the coming year. The reason that might not be a good idea is actually, if you look backwards across the very bottom of page 84, you'll see that there have been 2 years in the past that we actually ended up the years not with a surplus, but with an over expenditure. So you never know what's going to happen. We just decided this year that the taxpayers had gone through, as Jim pointed out, such a major increase last year, both education and town taxes, that we felt like we needed to do the best we could to try to keep our taxes down this year. And what that means is we don't have as big a cushion going into the future, but at least we're going to make it through this year. So that was our goal, is to try to, given the fact that we had cut a few things out of the budget and yet the cost still went up, keep the tax rate as low as we could. But having said that, going back to page, whatever it was, 78 there, which Nick has on the screen, just to familiarize everybody with how this budget works. The revenue's at the top. The next portion, which is the second half of the page 78 in the town report, and the second half of what Nick's got up here, is you can see, if you look way over on the left-hand side, it says pre-kindergarten. So the way that state builds budgets is they amass all of the costs for pre-kindergarten, all the way down to halfway down the page on page 79. And Nick, if you'll scroll to the next, yeah, so you can see, where did it go? I think down, scroll down a little bit, Nick. Where are we here? We should be seeing numbers 5593. So scroll back up again. Oh no, I'm sorry. 5593. No, where? I'm afraid of this.
What heading?
We're looking for, on the left-hand side, total 01 pre-kindergarten.
Yeah, that's in the middle of page 79.
Yeah, there you go. So you're in a good place now. Yeah, so
we're just trying to get the screen to be in the same place that we are here. So the way that, so you can see how much does pre-kindergarten cost. It's now on that line, total of 01 pre-kindergarten, et cetera. So we sort out all the expenses associated with pre-kindergarten. Then below that, second half of page 79 and on to page 80 is elementary, which is all kindergarten through 6th grade. And that's going to go down, Nick, till we get to total 11 elementary.
Yep, it's up.
Yeah. Okay, so and if anybody wants to see how much elementary costs, all of the costs associated with operating kindergarten through 6th grade, that's that line across there, including all the various different components of that expenditure. Then secondary, you can see secondary goes down to a total of 31 secondary. Yes, okay, it's on the screen as well. And then after that is everything that's location-wide, that isn't specific to any of the previous categories. So that includes things like, you know, the music ed services that are for all the kids, not specifically for one of the grades or whatever. Phys ed, guidance services, health services.
Keep going.
You can keep going down, yeah. Page 82, etc. We can breeze through these here. We don't need to spend a lot of time on it, but I just wanted to familiarize you with how the thing works. Office of the Board of Education, Principal, Library Media, Fiscal Services, Operation of the Building, that's on page 83. How much does it cost to run this building, you know, to heat it, to keep it, you know, mowed, etc. Lucy, if it's okay, let me just keep going through the sort of the rundown, and then we'll go back for questions afterwards. Is that okay?
Yep.
And then you get to page 84, the total, and back where we were a few minutes ago, down at the very bottom of the third column in from the right, which, as Lucy pointed out earlier, next year we're going to try to have the headings at the top of these columns here, because who the hell knows where you were when you started, right? But third one in from the right is subtotal for this year, to be able to spend $4 million and to raise by taxes $3,659,434. And I want to point out one other thing, and this unfortunately won't, Nick, I don't think has it. It's in the town report. If you can go to page 85, Jim Herrick had asked earlier, what's the tax impact going to be? And as I said before, we wanted the school tax to be as reduced. So that that should be going down, is going to be going down, assuming the budget passes, by that to $1.89. But I wanted also to point out.
Do you want me to bring that up? I can bring up the town report.
Okay, bring up the town report, and here's the page that I want you to go to, is page of the town report. Can you go to page 8? And if everybody can turn to page 8. I think this is a really important thing to keep in mind, and that is that we are looking at a budget which would raise somewhere between $3.7 and $4 million. But if you look part way down page 8,
I'm getting there.
Should have warned you about this, Nick. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you didn't tell me about this one.
Yeah, really.
Hold on, I got it. Budget annual report. Oh, that's not it. Sorry, folks.
It looks like everyone on Zoom has the town report.
If people have town reports on.
I mean, if you want to keep going, that's fine. I'll
This is pretty simple. Let me go through this, and if you've got it, you can go turn to page 8. Homestead taxes to the school district, in parentheses, residents. Because of income sensitivity, those of us who live in this town actually pay in school taxes $1.1 million. That's the sum total of what all residents of this town paid in last year to support our schools. Non-residents.
And you said what, page 8?
Page 8, yeah. Non-residents, people who own second homes in this town, pay into the local school district $1.379 million. So second homeowners pay more than we do toward running our school. And the balance comes from income sensitivity. So the balance that comes into the town from that is $1.275 million. And that's because we don't have a lot of property in town. So there are property wealthy towns like Dover's a good example, Killington. They have a tax base that they can go to raise money, and they raise tons of money from that, and they send it to towns like Marlboro who do not have a huge tax base. And it comes back to us in the form of a rebate on your taxes. Not a rebate, but a reduction in. You, us, and most people I know get a tax bill from the town of Marlboro showing a huge number and then an actual amount due. And the difference between those is what comes into the town in terms is about, $1.3 million or something like that. So I think it's a really important thing to remember that we actually, residents, the people who vote on this, only pay about 1/3 of the cost of running the school. So enough of my blather here. Have I given everybody a kind of a rundown what the budget looks like? Again, no changes can be made to this point, but you can vote yes or no on the budget. But we like the select board, had a number of open meetings, and we asked people to come before we put the budget, finalized it, and when we had suggestions. One of them came, I think, from you, Carol Ann, was what about up until this year, there's the universal meals in the school, and we had made those available to the faculty and staff as well. And
$136,000.
And Carol Ann said, aren't the faculty all getting free lunch? And we said, yeah. So that's one of the reductions that we made, saying, if you work here, you're going to have to kick in a couple bucks for your lunch. You're not going to get it for free, etc. So those were a couple, ideas came at these pre-town meetings. But anyway, more questions.
I've got several from the Zoom.
Okay, let's go with Lucy first.
Okay.
And Tamara, did you have a question as well?
Oh, yeah, I had a question.
Okay, let's go Lucy, Tamara, and then go to Zoom. How about that?
Okay, Lucy Gratwood, Town Hill Road. I noticed that it's secondary 7 through 12. How do we know how much is the tuition to the high school and for 7th and 8th grade here?
So that is broken down right on that page there, Lucy. It does say tuition. And so it's broken down, line number 5561 is tuition to public local educational A's, LEAs, local educational administrations. And then this 5562 is tuition to private Vermont LEAs. So if you subtract those from the total, you come up with the cost of running the secondary here at Marlboro, which is grades 7 and 8. And Tamara, yeah.
So I had two questions. One is on page 78, it says number 5, local, and it says tuition students.
Oh,
and
is
there's
that?
like a big jump in the proposed, like what does that mean? Are those like outside people paying to be here? See that line 41,
Yeah.
account number 41301, is that outside people paying to be here?
It is, yes.
So we expect $15,000, like like a 421% increase in people paying to send their kids here next year?
Yes, it's not a huge amount of money in the grand scheme of things,
Yeah.
but there are people who pay to have their kids come here, yes.
Wow. So why like a huge increase? Like what, we just think that, we just know that there's new kids coming?
Yeah, we do know that they're coming, or we have some assurance. I mean, they obviously may change their minds or
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
but so far, it's been agreed that they would be here next year.
So that seems unusual, right? That we have like so many.
It used to be more, in
Okay.
fact, you can see
Oh,
a
I
few
see. It
years
used to be
ago-
26.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
Oh,
it used to be that we could accept tuition students from wherever they wanted to come from. We often had kids who came here from Halifax or from Brattleboro or whatever. Once Act 173 passed at the state level, which means that special education is now all consolidated through the supervisory union. Then the supervisory union said, and rightly so, you can't accept tuition students who might have expenses over and above the regular cost of doing
Oh,
business.
like special needs.
And then
kids.
share that with your entire supervisory union.
Yeah.
So at that point, we had to stop taking students that weren't from within the supervisory union.
Right. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, it used to be a big deal at Marlboro. You know, there were lots of kids coming and going from other places, and we just can't do that anymore. It has to do with state laws, essentially.
Oh, that's interesting. And just out of curiosity, what's the tuition cost? Like,
We set that
oh,
every
is it
year.
there? No, that's a total.
I remember setting it, but I don't remember what it was.
It's around 16, 17, I think.
Yeah, so it's like comparable to like private school.
Yeah.
A little cheaper. That's cool. And then the other question I had was on the page 84, right, on the very bottom, when you're saying that you guys were gonna contribute the 429 surplus back to the costs for this year. And so my question was, is that 4088, that $4 million, is that with the $500,000 deducted or no?
No, if you take the 4,088,434,
Yeah,
subtract the 429 from that,
okay,
then you go back to page 78,
okay.
you will see that is the number that shows up.
That we
Well,
start with.
it's actually, I'll tell you what line it is. It's 43110. That comes 3569 335. No, 3659. Yeah, okay. I'm sorry. It's the one total Marlboro School District on page
It's the
78.
3846, 620.
Wait, 38?
What line is it?
It's 3659 434. Third column in from the right, at the bottom of the revenue section. That, 78. So if you go to page 84, take 4,088,434, subtract from that
Yeah.
429,000, you get 3,659,434.
Oh, 434? So it's not the education spending grant?
That's correct. It's not the spending grant, it's the total amount of
General.
revenue has to, you want your revenue to match your total expenditures.
434, oh, okay, so it's the general fund, right? That's what it is, it's total 1001 general fund.
It's total Marlboro School District.
Yeah, it's
That
right
gray
below
line,
that.
right across the bottom with no
Ah,
code
okay, got it.
associated with it.
3954.
Yeah.
Ends in 434.
Okay,
Because there's 3 zeros, you subtract 3 zeros, then the first 3 digits are going to be the same, right? So.
got it.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Ready for?
Yeah, okay, online?
Yep, Peggy Tiffany, question for school board. How many tuition students do we have? Specifically, how many students are getting free or reduced tuition because their parents teach at the school? What is the impact to what we get from the state? So there's multiple questions there. If you want, I can read them again one at a time.
Yeah, okay, so, is it 4 students all?
There are 4 students whose parents teach there. They do not get free tuition. They pay.
Full ride.
I was at the last school board meeting, and there was one teacher who works 1 day a week and has 3 students, and one child that gets free tuition, and the other 2 get half.
She has,
She has 3 children.
Yep.
One gets free. She asked for a parental whatever. I was at the meeting, and the agreement by the school board was that 2 children she only has to pay half tuition for 2 children, and 1 child goes for free. And that there's another teacher who also has.
No, that wasn't, they all get half.
So there are 2 families associated with this, and each of them has 2 kids.
She's gonna have a 3rd kid coming in. One of them's gonna have a 3rd kid coming in, yeah.
Right, but isn't here yet. And so the school board agreed that because they teach here, they did not need to pay the full tuition. So basically, I think they got a twofer, is about what it worked out, right? So the $15,000 is less than what they would pay if they came here and paid the full tuition, but they each bring 2 kids with them, and they both work here. And we like to respect the people that work here, and we like to respect that they choose to have their children come here as well.
But there was an impact to something about per pupil costs. So what's the town sucking up because we're giving them a break?
So that's about half of that amount, I think. I think the 15,000 would be about doubled if they paid the full tuition, but you know, kids fit seamlessly into the classrooms as well. It's not like each kid costs us that money.
I know, but so why should we as taxpayers be supporting their tuition? I don't understand why we're supporting their tuition. That does not make sense to me.
I think our reasoning was that they came and appealed because they work at Marlboro School.
I know, but one teacher is only 1 day a week.
Yeah, we decided we couldn't start prorating how many hours teachers worked. So once we made the decision that we were going to give them basically the twofer, we just did it across the board. And those teachers, I guess I'm biased. Teachers at Marlboro School work very hard.
I know, I used to be one.
I know. So we felt like that was something we could do for them. They used to be able to send their children for free, and they can't anymore. So that was, it was a decision the board made that we wanted
Right,
to.
but I have no way of voting on that in terms of the budget. I have no way of saying I don't agree with that, and so I don't want to support the budget. I have no recourse based on your decision. And I was the only person attending that meeting. There was nobody else at that meeting. I was the only non-school board person at the meeting.
Yeah, Rebecca was there.
Yep.
And Dana.
I was there.
Right, but they weren't there.
Yes.
So I just feel like that's a hidden thing that I don't agree with and I don't want to support.
Okay.
Okay, next question. What is happening with this?
Actually, is that a response to that, Rebecca?
One for Peggy?
No.
Sorry. Could I just throw something in there?
This is, I think Peggy, Rebecca had something she wanted to say, I think relative to your question, is that right?
Yeah, I was gonna ask a question. If I remember correctly, were the students kind of, or the opportunity for these teachers to have them, was that they were grandfathered already?
Yes.
And no new students can do this going forward? Okay.
Yes, that's true.
And just thinking about off the top of my head, Peggy, sorry, I'll talk louder. In the big scheme of things, really how much is that affecting the budget? Is it like, 1/10 of a cent or something like that? So that's just something, to keep in mind.
Right, and thank you, Rebecca, for pointing out, it's true that these kids have been coming here since before the policy started to shift. And so we didn't feel like saying, now you have to send your kids to some other school. Yeah, thank you, Rebecca.
Next question.
Go for it.
What is happening with the school building issues? My understanding is that those issues are quite urgent, and this is from JW.
So, a little bit of background, I think you all know this, that we felt we needed to do something about this school for years and years and years. We have PCBs in the original building such that in the nurse's room, the youngest kids cannot be in there for more than 15 minutes at a time. the nurse has to be there, you know, I guess they figure that, I don't know how they figure this, nobody likes it, everybody hates it. The school needs work, we have looked at maybe moving to Potash Hill, we've looked at maybe renovating this building. We have been working on this for years and years and years. The school board, when Doug was the chair, was looking at it. Before that, when Lauren Poster was the chair. The school funding at the state level is in such chaos right now that there's no possible way that we're gonna know anything more for the next couple of years. So one of the things that we cut from our budget for the coming year was $50,000 that we have been spending or putting into a fund each year, a sinking bus fund, as Steve called it, so that we could hire architects and consultants to help us figure out what we might ever do with this place. That what would be a feasible thing, what would be manageable, how would we fund it. We said to all the consultants and to the architects, just send us a bill for what we owe you, we'll pay it off now. We're not gonna budget any more money to think about this until we know what's happening at the state. So the state, as everybody knows, if you've been following the news, they have thrown the entire education funding formula and the whole structure of education at the wall to see what sticks. And you know, many of us are irritated about that and trying to do the best we can to make sure that we'll still be here in a year or two. But in the meantime, I don't know if I'm answering your question, we're on hold. We're not gonna we have enough money in the budget. We actually put a little bit more in for not improvements, but repairs, so that if the roof starts to leak again, we'll have a little bit more money for that. But yeah, not right now, we're okay. So we're on hold as far as anything to do with the building, including even getting the PCBs moderated or ameliorated. So I don't know, it's not much of an answer.
JW, is that anything further on that?
You got more, Nick? More questions?
I've got one more.
Yeah.
I just wanted to give them time to unmute and answer. Okay, last question I have right now is on page 85, line 13, education spending per pupil FY25 is much lower than FY24. Please explain.
I'm sorry, line again?
Page 85, line 13. Oh, no. Education spending per pupil. You've got FY25 is much lower than FY24.
Yeah, 27,000 to 16,000.
Well, what you got to remember is those are numbers from previous years. I know that they did completely redo the way they figured cost per pupil, but I cannot explain why that went almost in half. Don't know that. Can't answer that
It's
question.
not because they changed the weighting?
It is, but it didn't change it by
They didn't change it by that
50%
much.
like that.
Oh, we have more pupils, but
Yeah, and they've been weighted slightly differently, which means to say that because we live in a rural area, each of our kids is now 1.2, I think, kids or something like that. But that doesn't explain that difference, which is so big. Yeah.
Would you say it's more of the way the state is calculating the numbers than?
That they did 2 years ago, and
Okay.
then I think when you look at fiscal 25 and then are projected for fiscal 26, those are the ones really that I can speak to with any kind of
Up at
sensibility.
line 1, is that what you're looking at then?
No, same line 13, but only the last two columns from the right.
Oh, I see.
The current year, 16,673, and then projected for next year, 16,350. Yeah, the ones before that, I can't say any more about. Yeah, Rebecca, did you?
There's a paragraph at the top of that page that I think explains that a little bit more. It's Greek to me, but I think they were trying to explain that there. If I'm not.
Could you read
First
it?
year
just in
of
case
Act
someone's not
127,
looking?
that paragraph?
Yeah. Do you want me to read it? Okay. it says fiscal year '25 was the first year of Act 127, long-term weighted average daily membership for pupil counts. Equalized pupils are shown for fiscal year '23 and '24. There's an acronym, LTWADM are the new.
Long-term weighted
Average daily membership.
average
Thank you.
daily membership.
What, are we a NASA? Acronym for everything?
So I think that's right. It had to do with the weighting. Why it went down by so much, I really can't answer
Well, it
that.
also says excess spending penalties suspended. I wonder if does that have anything to do with it?
They did do that for several years while they were instituting the weighting study, because during those years, if you spent more than a certain amount, you would have had a penalty. Then that came crashing back at us late June of last year. The excess spending penalty was reinstituted. So, yeah, so again, I wish I had a better answer to why it went down from 27 to 16.
That's it for the Zoomies, unless there's more Zoomies out there who have a question.
I just was gonna refer to the items, the articles on the ballot.
Oh, yeah, please do.
You guys wanna just run through it?
What page is that on for us to help us
It's
out
in the
here?
beginning.
No idea.
76.
76.
Page 76, someone said. Yes, 76. Trombones.
Okay, so these are pretty much pro forma. One school director is running for a 3-year term. That's Rachel, and because this isn't an open meeting, I would like to speak in support of her, but there's nobody else on the ballot anyway, so.
You can write someone in, it's fine.
Mickey Mouse.
No,
Please
don't, actually, it makes it hard for them.
Please don't, we have to enumerate them,
You
and
have to count them. No,
those
don't.
write-ins go to the state, we have to fill out every single
Never
one.
mind, I take it back.
Please don't.
Okay, not Mickey Mouse.
Not Mickey Mouse. The school directors have been at $500 for a number of years, and we suggest that it remain the same.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Last year's minutes, which aren't in the town report, Jeremy Kirk, who's a former school board member, stated that he felt the compensation is so low that it's unattractive as a position for any volunteer and will be unattainable work to do by anyone without means. That was just his position.
Well, I think we can all understand that. If this was a particularly hard year to budget, and, you know, it's an awkward thing for a school board member to say, I would like to see the compensation go up, especially in a tough year, so.
Yeah.
And that, if this were a town meeting, Jeremy could stand up and say that, and this budget could be amended to include that.
It might be
It's
something you
tricky.
put on your radar for next year.
Yeah.
Since it can't be
Yeah,
changed at this point.
It can't be changed.
yeah.
I mean, someone could come to one of our meetings when we're doing the budget and suggest it. Nobody did, so we kept it the same.
That's, no, just say, yeah,
Yeah.
just, yeah.
So then, borrow in anticipation of revenue, you all heard Steve's explanation of that. You can see Article 4 is, shall we be authorized to spend the entire $4,088,434? And it doesn't give the figure that you all saw in the budget of actually how much has to get raised, which is 1.94% lower than per pupil spending for the current year. So that we were authorized to spend the entire $4 million, even though only $3,600,000 and something or other is actually raised from taxes. And the other $400,000 or more is using surplus funds to reduce the amount to be raised.
Question here?
Yeah.
Per pupil ed spending lower than last year, how do we compare with other towns?
So,
Do we have that in here? Because sometimes we used to, but I don't know.
Yeah.
if we did.
Comments had something.
Yeah, unfortunately, page 85 is specific to Marlboro. You know, I can't answer that specifically, but I know that within the supervisory union, which includes Newbrook School, Townsend School, Jamaica School, Stratton, Dover, Wardsboro, we're all right about in there. None of them are appreciably lower, nor I think appreciably higher than we are. It's about the best answer I can give. I don't have specific numbers.
They reiterated, we used to be one of the highest in the state.
We were.
Just a comment.
Yeah.
Do we know how we rank now?
That's what she was asking.
Yeah.
I don't know what this.
Statewide, I don't really know, but district-wide, as Dan said, we're kind of right in the middle of the pack.
And I think one of the reasons that's happened is because we knew, we were, you know, when we were one of the highest in the states, we kind of knew that. And we said, well, that's just not really, how long can you keep on going doing this kind of thing? So we've been trying to moderate our expenses the last couple of years. And other people, you know, honestly have more fixed costs that they have less control over, that just mean that their budgets, I think, are going up faster than ours are.
Thank you.
Yeah, best I can answer. I wish I knew.
Oh, no, they
if
said
we could
thank
do
you.
it, you know, a rundown of all the schools would be one thing, but, so then back to the articles on the warning. I think the only one,
Is we gotta move the surplus to the operational reserve fund, that one?
yeah, what page are you on again there?
77.
77.
Maybe go back and explain that one. About moving the surplus to the operational reserve fund?
Well, so that's, we had that in last year, although we changed the name of the fund. We had a fund called the Capital Fund or something like that. At on your last year's ballot, you voted to approve the change of that name to an operational reserve fund so that we could use the funds not just for capital expenditures, but for anything else that came along. This allows us to move any excess funds at the end of the year into a reserve fund, or to use them to reduce the taxes for the coming year. So it's just an authorization that we ask you to give to us.
Excuse me, is that FY '24 or FY 2025?
Probably should have been changed to say that from the last year, Nancy.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So good question. My guess is that because this ballot's already been printed, that we won't be authorized to do that. Good question. We'll follow up on that. Thank you, Nancy, for pointing that out. Unless everybody wants to just grab a pen and, you know, sign across the whole thing out there. No, unfortunately, the ballots are going to represent exactly what it says here, right, Forrest? Is that right?
That's my understanding.
Yeah, there's no reason why it would be any different than what we presented as an article here, so.
Correct.
Yeah.
The warning that the board presents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, whoops, okay. It may be that in order to make this viable, we actually hold I don't know, we'll look into that, see what we can figure out what to do. That's assuming there are any excess funds anyway, you know, so. And then Articles 9 and 10, we put those back in, oh yeah, sorry.
I'm sorry, are you guys talking about Article 8, moving the operational from fiscal year '24? That was fiscal year '24, school year. Those were the funds from this last fiscal year for the school. Right.
24, 25.
Or is that FY, in other words, if it's September to August, 24 into 25, that would be FY 25, wouldn't it?
Yeah, the school goes,
Because it's a fiscal year, so it includes both 24 and 25.
but fiscal year '24 ended in June.
Yeah, last June.
Right, so that's your spend from the
Right.
last school year, right?
I
So, yeah.
I think this is wrong.
I think
Okay.
that what we're asking is that in the coming year, we be authorized to use the excess from the current year to put it into the operational reserve.
Okay.
I think
thought it was
we've
right,
already
but-
dealt with the excess from
But
'24.
we didn't get we started the fund, I think I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
We said we could do this fund, but we didn't get the authorization to move last year's yet.
Yeah.
So this is about
That's what I
moving,
was thinking.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I think it's right,
I think so too.
because we
It's not gonna help us much because we just
just
spent
spent it
all
all.
the money to
Yeah.
reduce the taxes. But, okay,
I
to be
think it's
continued.
correct, but
No,
we
yeah.
could always ask Heidi too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, for sure, yeah. Jeff, go
What
ahead.
is Article 5?
Article 5?
5 or 6?
Oh,
Oh. Oh.
There's no article.
There's no 5 or 6.
Let me see what the actual warning has.
Let's catch that.
Spending.
Hold on, let me see what the actual warning has
I
here.
think it's just a typo. I think there's only 8 articles.
I think we have the answer, Dan. I think the numbers were changed on the actual ballot. It's wrong on what you have in the report, but the ballot shows,
it does?
it ends Article 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here, the article.
I just want to say, so I made those corrections for you guys. You presented your warning to me full of numerical and typographical errors and not signed. Rachel, I think it's not funny even a little bit.
I'm sorry, I thought
It's
I
really,
remembered
I
signing
think it's
it.
really upsetting for the voters of the
No,
town.
okay.
I just,
$4 million you guys are asking for, yeah?
Article 5 does say, to see if the voters of the town school district will authorize the school directors to spend any grants or other funds received by the district for school purposes. Article 6 says to see if the voters of Marlboro School District authorize school directors to move the operational surplus from FY24 to operational reserve fund.
So we just got the numbers wrong when we presented.
Well,
this,
no,
is that right?
it's quite frankly, Article 6, there's an article missing here, quite frankly.
The borrowing one?
And it's like, yeah, I mean, if you look, I mean, here, on the warning that you got published, it has Article 4, which ends with the 163050, which is, we got here. Then there's an Article 5 and an Article 6 about the school district, school directors authorized to spend money, and then it goes to Article 7, which is returning to the in-person town meeting. It's,
Yeah, it's like
7 and 8
it's,
Yeah.
I mean, this is what's, I mean, you want me to put this on the screen?
So is our ballot correct?
Ballot's correct.
I mean, it could be stated ethically, I'm not sure that I'm allowed to make those changes, but I did for the sake of the voters.
Yeah,
But it's
thank
on
you.
the board.
Right, so it seems like what's in the town report is the actual wording of the things on the ballot, but the numbers are just wrong, is that correct?
No, there's one missing.
So.
Oh, no, the numbers are wrong.
It's
Yes.
just the numbers are wrong.
Article 7 should be Article 5. Article 8 should be Article 6. Article 9 should be 7. Article 10 should be 8.
So there's only 8 articles.
There's only 8 articles.
As I have it up, I'm sharing it to the Zoom, and you guys can see it behind me.
7 and 8 are identical.
Yeah.
No, they're not.
They're not identical. Should we talk about those next?
Yeah, so let me just say something about, So you've
Gail
gotten
had
to-
something to say also.
Oh, yeah, okay, go ahead, Gail. Yeah.
So, Gail MacArthur, auditor, one of those bad auditors, and I'm just gonna say that this could possibly be another auditor error, because I believe that Forrest pointed out to Dan the errors with the numbering, and we received 2 or 3 revised warnings from the school directors, and we may have not put in the correct revised warning in our town report.
Well, as long as people understand there are a total of 8 articles, and for whatever reason in the town report, the numbers are simply wrong, we would like to think that at least on the ballots, they are correct. And thank you, Forrest, for any typos that were in there.
Dan, there's really a total of 7 articles, because 7 and 8 on the ballot are the same.
No, they're not, no.
They're not?
Read carefully.
9 and
Want-
10
do you-
on here.
Would you guys like to address that?
Yes.
Let's address that.
Yeah, so the issue with 7 and 8, so.
It is correct on the ballot.
Okay, good. So you guys will remember from last year that we had those same 2 articles, number 7 and 8. I don't know what numbers they were last year, but they were worded the same way. And so the school board voted to include those again, and we recognize that there's a cost and a frustration to that, because the people who have to count the ballots have to keep track of blah, blah, blah. We wanted to do that because we feel that as time goes on, there may be people who feel like we should go back to having an in-person town meeting. There may be fewer and fewer people who feel that way. So we wanted to include that just to give a little bit of historical perspective on what happened to in-person town meetings in Vermont. So that was our point on this. We recognize that there's a little bit of a cost to it.
So number 7 is about voting for the budget. And number 8 is other public questions.
Got it, sorry.
So they are different, and for example, I was maybe one of the few that voted differently. I do think that the budget should be voted by Australian ballot, that it's really, $4 million is very important. But I would like to go back to in-person town meeting for discussions of other public questions. So there's 2 different things there. I mean, that's just my opinion.
Yeah, Forrest, go ahead.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I just want to go back to, Nick, can you pull up the, not the sample ballot, but last year's election results, please?
Oh, those are in the town report.
They're in the town report. Actually, pull up 23.
23 you want? Yes, I've got
That's the school ballot, 23. So, again, I'm going to point to the ethics, select board ethics code that we talked about earlier, and the school board has not, to my knowledge, adopted these. But I'm going to ask some questions here because...
Page 95 in the town report, that'll show you where the results are that Forrest is talking about.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, this is challenging. And again, I've prepared a statement that I'm going to read on why, on the sort of voting method and what's happened in the past, right? So the town's voted by Australian ballot on this issue twice. Last year, this is the school budget, yeah?
This is 23.
23 school budget, okay. So the vote was yes. So Article 5 in 2023, to see if the voters of the school district would choose to continue electing all officers by Australian ballot. The response was 35 yes, 33 no. Next one down, please. Article 6, to see if the voters of the school district shall continue adopting all public questions by Australian ballot. Yes was 324, no was 94. Article 7, to see if the voters of the Marlboro School District choose to continue adopting all budget articles by Australian ballot in place of floor vote. Yes, 326, no, 93. My question to the board is, it looks to me like you don't agree with the process whereby we vote by Australian ballot. Because this is election denial to say, well, we've done it once. We've done it twice with the same results. I believe that this is undermining the public's trust in our elections. I'm responsible for elections in our town as the town clerk. And I assumed, again, since you guys are asking taxpayers for $4 million, that your board would respond to the voters and what the voters have said. So this is really not listening by the board to put these articles up again. Further, I would say the school board says on their minutes of their meetings, our guiding principles, students will be at the center of our decision making. So for me, showing students that ignoring what the voters say and their power to make decisions is acceptable behavior and without consequence. I find that pretty insane. And frankly, the word sedition usually involves actually conspiring to disrupt the legal operation of the government, and it's beyond expression of an opinion or protesting of government policy. So I'm going to ask you guys that question. So your board's acting against the majority of the voters of town. We've seen it once, we've seen it twice. And this behavior of not listening to me is bullying, and it's destroyed my trust in your board and your work. It's very painful for me to say this. Voting is a right of every citizen of the town, state, and country. People, when it's stated that, oh, those people shouldn't be able to vote because they haven't been in-person town meeting to hear you bumble around, pretty sad. Voice vote is not how elections are conducted once we've asked the question and seen the answer. I'd say further, just because I'm on a roll here, property ownership is a privilege enjoyed by people of means. What we see in the town office is people who are unable to pay their taxes, and they break down crying in front of me saying, "Are you going to take my home from me?" This is the suffering that we as town officers witness every day in the town office, and we are tasked with upholding an extremely unfair situation that we're all living through here. You drive to Brattleboro and you see people on the street, and if your response is, those people, where are the police? Could be any one of you with a medical emergency or something goes terribly wrong in your life. So if you're privileged enough to be insulated from the reality endured by your fellow townspeople, you're not doing the work of municipal officers, and you trample both your oath of office as school directors and the code of ethics that we've talked about. Thank you.
Thank you, Forrest.
So just a couple of things. I think if you read the school director's report, 88 and 89, we say a little bit about why we included these in there. And basically is what I said a few minutes ago, to see whether the people's minds change about this. You know, is there any kind of democratic switching from looking at one way to another? We're not proposing that it change. We're just asking the question. And I think it's actually interesting to look at the results of the town meeting. You showed the ones from 2023. And 2024, the results were not as one-sided as they were in 2023, by quite a few votes, in fact. So, in other words, Article 11, the one to adopt, or Article 12 to adopt public questions by Australian ballot, 112 people voted yes, 280 voted no. It's about the same total number of voters, but there was a shift there. So we thought that's interesting. Let's see what happens in another year. So that's where we are right now. We're having another year. Will there be a change of mind on this? It's the way I think about it is I do want to know what people think about this. And as far as, you know, how we operate, you know, I apologize if there are things that I don't know the answers to, or if things are beyond my ability to comprehend them, but I don't, it's just, you know, there's a lot of stuff you got to think about if you're going to run a budget like this and run a school like this.
Thank you, Forrest, for sharing that. Hard to hear, but thank you. I felt like enough people had come to me saying, why can't we talk about this at town meeting? I'm not sure this is the answer, because I do think the budget should still be voted on by Australian ballot personally. But I would like to have I wanted to do something to show that I had heard those people who had come to me and said, we never get to talk about this at town meeting anymore. And I said, well, you can come to the informational meetings. And there was, well, I can't, or I did, all the excuses. So for me, I don't feel like I'm going against the democratic process at all, because I'm just listening to the constituents who wanted to have a different kind of say, the way probably they were the people in town who used to come to town meeting. Obviously, they wouldn't be asking for it, but, so, anyway. Did you really say sedition, though?
I did.
That's, I find that really hard.
Okay.
So,
I'd be happy to discuss that more, but I think Gail had her hand raised.
David and then Gail.
David Holzapfel, Route 9. I'm wondering if, I mean, I take your point, Rachel, that people are wondering why you can't talk about the things the way we could at town meeting. And I would urge the board to pay close attention to what the town government has done in holding 4 informational meetings, which were so much more informative than anything that's ever happened at town meeting with regard to the town budget and town operation. I realize the school board meets every third Thursday at night, but an effort could be made by the board, and I would urge you to consider it, to hold town meetings such as the town government has done, at which time questions of this sort can be discussed more fully.
We actually did have a few, but we had one that we had here that was very sparsely attended. Anyway, we have not quite as many because our budget, as you may know, we don't have.
I understand too that your budget process, because of the state interference, I'll use that word, makes it very difficult. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But I would still urge the school board to make an effort to provide people with greater opportunity to interact.
We can continue to try.
And Gail?
So I just want to say that it's my understanding, Gail MacArthur, that the only way to go back to a in-person town meeting is if it would be voted on by Australian ballot.
Mm-hmm.
So unless it's on the ballot as a warned article, there will never be a way to go back to an in-person town meeting.
Jeff?
One of the things that strikes me is that we didn't put it on ours because we didn't get a petition with the correct number of signatures written out correctly. If we had gotten a petition, it would have been on ours as well. But we as the board didn't choose to put it on there. We're waiting, if you've got somebody that wants to bring a petition to put it on the ballot, that's the right way to do it, at least from my perspective. If somebody feels strong enough that we want to go back to town meeting and go out and get the required number of signatures on a petition and has it correctly written, which we give them ample opportunity to do that, then it would be back on there by the choice of the people saying, please put this on the ballot. These are the X number of signatures we need. And so it's not just us as a board saying we want to put it back on there.
That's correct. Yeah, absolutely. Nobody's under any obligation to put this back on unless they get a petition.
And
I was just going to say briefly again, I think that it's important to think up to realize that the town and the school are like two heads of a single body, right? So the body of the town, all the taxpayers, they're funding both of these entities. And so, Rachel, when I was saying sedition, to me, when the town board says we're not doing this, and for Jeff's reasons, which seem very clear to me, you're the other side, from my point of view as the town clerk, because I'm responsible for elections, you're saying to me, your process doesn't matter, and we're gonna expect you to take minutes at an in-person voice vote town meeting, as well as run the Australian ballot election at the same time on the same day. So that's really a lot for me personally, but I think for the voters, you're saying you have to do both of these things to even participate in town government. And in this moment where people aren't here and can't for whatever reason, or don't care, I don't know. But to me, the problem is that voice vote. So when we talk about in-person town meeting, this is an in-person town meeting. We are having a meeting. It's the people and the taxpayers and voters of the town. It's a town meeting. We're only pulling out, by our current process of using Australian ballot, we're pulling out the vote, okay? And it's talked about as Australian ballot. The other term for it that I think it's interesting is not used is secret ballot. And the voter's oath said, the last clause in the Vermont voter's oath says, without fear or favor of any person. So my personal experience in a voice vote meeting is I have no idea what's happening. A bunch of people roar about this and that, and then that's what we move. And so if you are not in the majority, you're basically squelched and you have no say. And I've watched that as the town clerk sitting up there, and I'm making minutes of all the jibber jabber that's happening. It's really difficult, and I have no clarity on yay or nay as like voice vote. Who knows what it is? So my point of view, I'm going to bring a level of professionality, take my oath extremely seriously about working for the voters of the town. For me personally, it's too ambiguous, and I think lower attendance shows either disrespect, don't care, can't follow it, are old and can't sit in a public meeting on a metal chair for 6 hours and follow this. Those are some of my reasons, and I'm just going to stop right there.
So, Forrest, if you don't mind, I'd like to go back a little bit though, because you essentially say that you're sick of watching me stand here and bumble around. I acknowledge that there are things that I don't understand about some of this here. What today could I have answered more clearly that would have made this seem less bumbling to you?
I mean, just being prepared mostly. And again, when you submit the warning to me full of typographical errors, the number of the articles is wrong, and it's not signed in ink, I believe you are not doing your job. And it's $4 million you're asking the voters for, so you're asking me to pick up your pieces and make it nice for the ballot. So I could have just merely put exactly what you put on the ballot, and I chose not to, because I don't think the voters deserve that.
Well, I sincerely apologize for that. That is completely on me. Whether I am going to take this up with the auditors, because I do have the final copies that I would have sent through here. And it may be that I had a better one that addressed your issues and it didn't get in there, or it may be that I never did that. So my apologies for that.
I mean, and honestly, you didn't submit it to me until I asked, because we were at deadline with the town.
Mm-hmm.
And the statutory deadline was happening, and it's like, you guys didn't act. And so again, it's putting it on me to be your secretary, to be making sure that you're following the marks, and that's what I do because I care for this whole thing. So yeah.
Well, and then the second thing is, what was it? It was another thing I was going to ask for clarity about. I can't remember now what it is, but we'll get back to it.
I do have a question from Zoom, from T, which I believe is Tim. Listening to all the dialogue regarding the cost of operating MES, I have some concerns. In view that the school population has been trending down for a number of years, I wonder if there isn't a point when the cost of keeping the school isn't feasible. Has the board got a number of students the population would be when it is no longer cost effective to keep the school open and instead bus them to other schools?
I think the answer to that is all in that per pupil cost that we were talking about earlier. I think, well, we all know what happened in Wyndham. They had, 18 kids, fewer, I think, and that was, they simply weren't able to keep their school going there. Jamaica's down now somewhere in the 20s, I think, and that also is becoming non-viable. You know, they simply can't afford to have the building and all the people associated with it. So those are some small numbers. If our per pupil costs become such that they are completely discrepant with other small schools around here, then we're simply going to have to address that issue. And I don't know what the answers are going to be. There's too much at stake, what's happening at the state level right now, to even know what schools are going to look like in 2 more years. So kind of kicking that down the road a little bit to say, keep your eye on the per pupil costs.
Tim, does that answer your question?
I guess at this point, I would ask if there is then a per pupil cost, and what that ceiling would be when it's no longer feasible.
Yeah, that's, somebody asked the question, well, how do we compare with other schools around here? We don't have specific figures on that, but we've got, but they can be found. And believe me, we keep an eye on those things, especially within the supervisory union, because within the supervisory union, we have so many shared costs. So if it becomes, that we're way more expensive or even any more expensive than any of the schools in the supervisory union, then we got to really consider that, Tim.
Is that good, Tim? I guess not. I have nothing else here.
Let's see. Why don't we say Rebecca and then David?
I gotta back up Forrest 100%. And I know this town meeting and Australian ballot tends to be a pretty divisive conversation in town. But we do have people, there was somebody who came in with rolls of quarters to try to pay their taxes. Multiple people coming in and crying, thinking that we are going to be going out, after their homes and stuff like that. And I agree with him. I feel like if the votes per town meeting or Australia ballot were closer, I feel like that to me would be valid to keep asking. And I definitely see like maybe every few years you do a petition just to see if something has changed. But it does feel like some of the words I would share with Forrest, it does feel like it's kind of like there's, we're gonna keep trying, when it doesn't feel productive to me. Unless again, those numbers were closer. So I just wanna kind of back up Forrest. What we see in the town office can be heartbreaking. What some of the people in our town are going through. Sorry, I'm getting emotional. So that was it.
Was it David? And then, yeah.
With regard to in-person town meetings, as a resident in town, I've been to 30 or so. And there is some beauty in that process. But that beauty is restrictive for most people in town. I recognize that it's a tradition throughout the state. But it was also a tradition that only property white males could vote. Sometimes traditions have to end because they're no longer the experience of the population. And that following Jeff's point there, the fact that the board didn't receive a petition sounds like the board is either fishing for something or is conducting some sort of experiment. And I'm frankly disappointed.
Well, I think it's fair to say that we will take that under advisement and that it's somewhat doubtful that it will be on there again in another year. We can't change it now. You all understand that. This is not a town meeting. This is informational. We can't change the ballot now, but we also listen.
And I guess my answer to those people that come to me would be, you go get the petition instead of me just acting on it.
And just stating that, the incredible beauty and transparency of our system is that any voter could take out a petition and deliver it to you with 45 signatures saying close Marlboro School at the end of this year. Mm-hmm. That could happen 365 days of the year. You'd have to warn it 30 days out. We'd have to conduct the vote by Australian ballot. So that's fair. That's not a room of people agreeing together. So to me, that's more democratic than the feeling of the room or that type of thing that we would usually say. That's saying what other people think without asking them. So, yeah. I rest my case.
Nancy.
I would just also like to say, if it makes you feel any better about the process, as one who has sometimes at least gone to the one informational meeting before town meeting, that I often would look around at the group and count the number of people there who were not elected or appointed town people. And I would be generous in saying that there were more than 10. And I think actually I would even say generous to say more than 5 people that were there. And so come to town meeting, it was obvious from some of the questions that some of the people there, of those 100-odd people, had not even read the town report before they attended. So it was a wonderful social event, but I can't say that people were that well informed. Certainly there's a core of people in town that do really pay attention and consider things. But I have loved this whole process that we have been going through, where there's more opportunity for people to attend the meetings, to have time to think about the issues, and if they can't make the meetings, to then look up the minutes of the meeting, which are available on the town website.
Because we live in Vermont and the wind changed direction, Tim lost his internet connection and he's back now. Can you just repeat your answer to his question about average pupil? He missed your answer.
So the question was, I think, Tim, at what point does a school become non-viable? And I think I just gave a couple examples of little schools, Wyndham, possibly Jamaica now, having to close because they have so few students, but those are in the, I think there are between 10 and 20 students in them. I don't see how Marlboro could ever operate with that few students. It ain't ever gonna happen. We just have to keep an eye on the cost per pupil, and as long as we are, in the pack with the other schools in the region, then I consider it viable. If we can't be, then we become non-viable.
Tim, does that answer your question? He said thanks.
And I think, I think what the school board, I don't think we're here today to discuss the merits of town meeting so much as whether the school board should have put these articles on the ballot. So we take your feedback as probably in the negative on that issue. I will point out too that we had, I don't remember exactly how many open meetings we tried to have. I don't remember exactly how well we advertised them, but we set up in here, we had, we had the screen on, and we had tried to get the word out. This was in October because we have to have our budget pretty much finalized by early January at the latest. So way more people have come today, for which we really thank you and appreciate. But it would have been possible at that point to have some discussion about some of the things that we're talking about today and have some effect on them. So just same as with the select board, come to those meetings. I think there are more people here today than at any of the other meetings, select board or school board, that I've been to. So that's good. But we can no longer make any changes either. So be proactive and come out.
I totally agree, and I understand the board's frustration. I mean, we put an incredible amount of work into clarity and transparency, and to have 7 people showed up is pretty rough on us. But as I've said to the select board members whose work I think has been exemplary, is you keep shining your light, because that's literally all we can do. If no one notices, we're still doing the right thing. So that's what I feel like we've been working through is recognizing and going back to the ethics again. This is going to be the contract for how boards deal with each other, and as a government, okay, we are a government, and so we have to act together to make things move for the townspeople and the voters. And like I say, I just did the ethics training today. I'll be coming to every single board to talk about maybe coming up with something like this, so that we're really honest with our voters about our actions.
Any other questions or comments from the Zoom gallery? Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you very much for your service and for your, I like the way you went through the budget and showed us where to put our eyes. It's a really confusing document without getting that kind of guidance. Forrest, thank you so much for your commitment and passion in your position.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. I think that chaos is imminent with the proposals for education reform from the governor, and I think that I just want to say, because we're in an opportunity where the passion is pretty intense, that I think it's going to be really important to reach across the aisle between the different factions of this tiny, tiny little community. The board and the town office and the auditors and the select board to get these communications happening before it explodes in a way that can't be fixed. And I just want to encourage picking up the phone when it's necessary, and supporting each other as practically unpaid constituents. You probably need, not constituents, but as unpaid people in our community. I think that you probably need more supports to do your job effectively. And probably reaching out and communicating is going to be really, really important, more so than ever moving forward.
Along those lines, Susan and Woody, I believe that's who this is, said, many thanks to the school board, select board, and town clerk.
Yeah, amen.
I'm just chopped liver, but that's okay.
And I want to give Forrest credit, because he has, when he saw that these were included on here, he did reach out immediately, picked up the phone and said, are you sure you want to do that? It doesn't seem right. So, the school board had at that point voted unanimously to include them. But Forrest was at that point also saying exactly what you heard Forrest say today. So he reached out to say, I disagree with this. Are you sure you want to do it?
Just want to qualify. I don't disagree with. I disagree with it personally, but 300 to 100 voters, so the majority of the voters disagree with you.
Yeah.
And so, I try.
Again, we're not talking about the issue itself. We're just talking about whether they should be included on the ballot, and that's what you said. You felt was inappropriate.
Not to beat a dead horse, but maybe I missed it. What was our per pupil spending?
That's
16
page
and change.
16 something. Okay.
Page. It's on that goofy report from the state, page 85. It's 16,350. It's on line 13.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
That's the one that was so much lower than 2 and 3 years ago, but.
Right.
and we don't know quite why.
One more comment from Zoom. LC says it may be longish learning process for town to start thinking about the budget in October. I would just say from my observation and my position with both the town budget and the school budget, and I'll let Rebecca speak to it, you've got to start early to get everything done.
We did.
Yeah.
We did,
Yeah.
those meetings.
Oh, no, I don't think
started
there's,
then. Yeah, but just to, those meetings started then. I started putting the budget together, gosh, I think even before that. So, yeah, so that's been happening. Sorry that they missed it, but that is an opportunity that person can attend, this coming year. I believe we're probably gonna stick to that. We'll see.
Just, I answered it. It's 16,350 is the per pupil cost. Oh yeah, no LC, not a criticism. It just, that's fine. Everything's good. They said, oh, wasn't a criticism. That's fine. Anything else from Zoom before it looks like we're kind of wrapping up here?
To officially adjourn.
Anything else from the Zoom before Dan kicks us all out of his school?
Anything else from the floor?
I would also just say to the people on Zoom, this meeting and the previous select board meeting will be available on BCTV's YouTube site. Is that right, Brian? And I hope it was a better experience for the Zoomers than we've had in the past. And hopefully we're going to be able to keep using them because it seems to have worked. And I'm going to talk to Brian about maybe putting the mic in the middle or something. But anyway, I just, as the town administrator, thank everybody for their passion. And I'll turn it over to Rebecca.
I just wanted to thank everybody who's here too and participating, because I'm at the point of begging people to come to, select board meetings and stuff like that. There's only seems like a handful of people truly making the decisions for the town or trying to find information. The select board works their tails off. So loving that people who do participate can bring those answers or questions and stuff to improve, like even what I do. I know a lot of the stuff that you guys have brought during these meetings, I've been like, oh, and changed my process a little bit. So I just want to thank everybody who's here, and I see some familiar faces who basically attend as many meetings as possible, so I just want to thank everybody.
It feels like this was really well promoted. I don't know if it was more well promoted than other things. I don't know. I noticed it, so.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you all.